The capital does not know he is alive. That is the only advantage he has left. Kalen pulls the hood lower and keeps walking. The merchant gate smells like salted fish and coal smoke and 3 years of everything that continued without him. The guards wave through the morning crowd without looking up. He is nobody. A traitor. A laborer. A ghost in a borrowed coat. Shinrue is strapped to his back, still asleep, one small fist tangled in the fabric at Kalen's shoulder. 3 years old and already silent in the way children become silent when survival requires it. Kalen taught him that. He is not proud of it. The city unfolds around him, familiar and wrong in the way of things that have been replaced by copies. Same streets. Same temple bells striking the 6th hour. Same imperial banners snapping at the eastern towers. Except the banners bear his brother's crest now. Except the soldiers at the inner gate wear Shinbao's colors. Except the name carved above the Hall of Accord has been recut, one character altered, just enough to erase the reign that came before. Just enough to erase him. Kalen counts the steps the way he counted them leaving. He does not know why. It is the only ritual he has left from the person he was before the Wooling Mountains, before the fever, before he learned that a body can do extraordinary things when it has no other option. He turns left at the apothecary lantern. Knocks twice. Pauses. Once more. The door opens. Lady Wen looks at his face first. Then she looks past him, at the child on his back, and something in her expression cracks open and seals itself shut again in the span of a single breath. She is a physician. She knows how to look at terrible things without flinching. She looks at Shinrue's face for a long moment. The jaw. The brow. The particular set of the eyes still closed in sleep. She knows. Kalen watches her know. Neither of them says it. Come inside, she says. Quickly. He steps over the threshold. The door closes behind him. He is inside the capital for the first time in 3 years, and his hands are steady, and his breathing is even, and somewhere behind his sternum something that has been clenched for a very long time is still clenched because this is not over, this is not safety, this is only the beginning of the thing he came back to do. He unstraps Shinrue gently and lowers him onto the cot in the back room. The boy doesn't wake. He sleeps like he's been promised the world will still be there when he opens his eyes, because Kalen has always made sure it is. Kalen straightens. Turns. Tell me the general is still in the capital, he says. Lady Wen looks at him for a moment. She already knows this is not really a question. He never left, she says. Kalen nods once. Files it away. Feels nothing, or tells himself he feels nothing, which is the version of the same skill he has been practicing for 3 years. Good, he says. He goes to the window. Looks out at the city that buried him without a body. He begins to plan. Chapter 1. The last time Kalen left through a gate, it was the palace's northern exit, and his hands were bound, and General Xiao Zhen's seal was drying on the decree that ended his life in every way that mattered to the empire. He had looked for Xiao Zhen in the courtyard that morning. He did not know why. Some part of him, the part that had not yet understood what was happening, believed there would be an explanation. A look at minimum. Something that would make the math of it resolve into sense. Xiao Zhen was not in the courtyard. Kalen stopped looking. They put him in a transport carriage and the gates closed, and that was that. He has had 3 years to stop thinking about the courtyard. He has not yet succeeded. Lady Wen's apothecary is 4 rooms. The shop front, the preparation room, a small kitchen, and the back room where she keeps the cot and the things that don't fit anywhere else. Kalen knows this space from before. He used to come here as a boy when the court physicians made him nervous, which was always. Lady Wen never made him nervous. She spoke to him like he was a person before he had any political reason to be treated like one. She heats water without asking and sets dried longan on the table because she remembers he doesn't like tea without something sweet alongside it. The fact that she still remembers this does something to Kalen's chest that he does not examine. How long have you been traveling? She asks. 11 days. She glances at the back room where Shinrue is sleeping. He's well? He's healthy. Strong. He doesn't like crowds and he talks constantly when he's comfortable, and he is very specific about which stories he will and will not accept at bedtime. Kalen pauses. He's well. Lady Wen is quiet for a moment. His birth record, she says carefully. It still doesn't exist. I made sure of that. I know. Thank you. The name you'd have given him is the name he has, Kalen says. Shinrue. I didn't see a reason to be indirect about the bloodline. Only about the other half of it. Lady Wen absorbs this. She is too practiced to let her face do much with it. And you're certain you want to do this? I'm here. That isn't the same thing. It is for me. She studies him. He lets her. He knows what she's looking for, the boy she used to treat for chest colds and examination anxiety, the second prince who laughed too easily and trusted too readily and had not yet learned that the court was a mouth waiting to close around him. She is checking whether that person survived. He didn't, particularly. But what came after him is more useful. I need to know the shape of things inside the palace, Kaelin says. Which ministers have stayed loyal to Shinbao out of belief and which out of fear? Which ones are waiting for a reason to move? I need the general's current positioning, his schedule, his garrison rotations, who he meets with privately. You're going to approach him. Yes. Kaelin. She says his name the way she used to when he was 12 and had done something she considered strategically unsound. He signed the decree. I know what he signed. Then you know. I know everything, he says very quietly. I know it better than you do. I have had 3 years and nothing but time to know it. I am not confused about what he did. He looks at her steadily. I am also not confused about what I need from him now, and those are two separate columns and I am capable of keeping them that way. Lady Wen is quiet. Outside, the city moves through its morning, cartwheels on stone, a vendor calling prices, the distant bell of the inner temple marking the 7th hour. The capital is indifferent. It was indifferent when he left and it is indifferent now and it will be indifferent until he gives it a reason to pay attention. The obsidian fold has increased sweeps in the merchant districts, she says finally. Shinbao is paranoid. There were rumors 3 months ago, a border garrison commander who made comments about legitimacy in front of the wrong people. The sweeps have been constant since. Who is the garrison commander? General Luo Tianhe. Eastern border. He's been quietly passed over for promotion twice under Shinbao's reign. Kaelin files this. A name. A grievance. A possible door. What's his relationship to Xiao Zhen? They trained together. Same cohort. The shape of something begins to assemble itself at the back of Kaelin's mind, the way strategies do, not in a flash but in accumulation, each piece finding its neighbor. I need 3 days, he says, to move through the city. Understand the current layout. Before I contact anyone directly. And Shenrue stays here? Kaelin glances toward the back room. He can hear, faintly, the small sounds of the boy beginning to wake. A shift, a murmur, the particular soft knock of a small foot against the cot frame that means he'll be upright in minutes. He stays here, he says. With you. He doesn't know me. He'll decide how he feels about you in approximately 4 minutes. He's fast. Something moves across Kaelin's face that is almost, not quite, a smile. Don't take it personally if he's direct about it. He didn't learn subtlety from me. Lady Wen's expression shifts, not a smile either, but adjacent. Whose subtlety did he learn then? Kaelin doesn't answer that. He turns back to the window instead. The capital hums below him. Shinbao's banners catch the morning wind. Somewhere inside those walls, inside that palace, inside the life that continued without him, General Xiao Zhen is beginning his day, drilling his soldiers, reviewing his dispatches, living in the version of events where the decree was sufficient, where the exile held, where Kaelin is a closed matter. He is about to become an open one. In the back room, Shenrue wakes fully. Baba, he calls, not panic, just checking. Just confirming. Here, Kaelin calls back. Always the same word. Always the same answer. He goes to his son. He picks him up. He lets himself be clung to for exactly as long as the boy needs. Then he sets him down, squares his shoulders, and begins. Chapter 2. The Eastern market opens at the 8th hour and by the 9th it is loud enough to disappear inside. Kaelin moves through it the way he has learned to move through everything since the mountains. Close to the edges, aware of exits, present in his body in the specific way that has nothing to do with comfort and everything to do with information. He notes the guard rotation at the silk merchant's corner. He notes the new checkpoint at the bridge crossing. 2 soldiers, imperial crest, Shinbao's colors, bored in the way of men assigned to posts they consider beneath them. Bored soldiers are predictable. Predictable is manageable. He has traded his traveling coat for a rougher one, undyed cotton, the kind a mid-level craftsman might wear. He's let 3 days of stubble develop. His hair is tied back without ceremony. He looks like nobody. He has been practicing looking like nobody since the Wuling Mountains taught him that visibility is a vulnerability he cannot afford. The market sells everything: dried medicines and fresh ginger, bolts of cloth stacked in towers of color, steamed buns wrapped in paper, second-hand tools laid out on blankets. A man in the corner repairing sandals with the focused attention of someone who has decided his work is the most important thing happening in the world. Kalen moves past all of it, taking in what he needs and letting the rest fall away. He has 3 objectives for today. First, the flow of soldiers, which routes they favor, which corners they skip. Second, the Hall of Ministers visible from the upper market bridge. He wants to see who enters, who lingers, who leaves in a hurry. Third, the military compound in the northeastern quarter, where Xiao Zhen's garrison is housed. He does not examine why the third objective is last. The bridge gives him a clean sight line to the Hall of Ministers. He buys a paper of roasted chestnuts from a vendor and leans against the rail and watches. 32 minutes. He counts 17 officials entering. 14 leave within 10 minutes, a sign of a short administrative briefing, nothing consequential. 2 stay longer, emerge together, walk in close conference toward the inner palace. He notes their robes. Senior ministers, second tier. He does not yet know their names or their loyalties, but he will. The 17th official does not emerge at all. Stayed inside. Either a meeting of actual consequence, or a man with nowhere better to be. Kalen files the ambiguity. He finishes the chestnuts. Folds the paper. Moves on. The military compound is not visible from street level. It sits behind a secondary wall, accessible through a gate on Armorer's Row. Kalen does not approach the gate. He finds instead a tea house across the thoroughfare, second floor, a window seat that a copper coin secures for an hour, and he sits and he watches the gate and he waits. He tells himself he is counting guard rotations. He is also counting guard rotations. At the 10th hour and a few minutes past, the gate opens for a supply delivery. 2 carts, 3 handlers, a supervising officer who checks the inventory with the exhausted thoroughness of a man who has been burned by careless supply records before. Standard procedure. Nothing remarkable. Then the officer steps aside and the man behind him walks into the light. Kalen goes very still. 3 years. He knew, intellectually, that 3 years would produce changes, in the city, in the court, in the people who had continued living inside the version of events where he was gone. He thought he had accounted for this. He thought he had prepared the appropriate internal distance. General Xiao Zhen moves through the supply inspection with the same economy of motion he has always had. Nothing wasted, nothing performed. He is in partial armor, the formal chest piece abandoned in favor of a field coat, and he is listening to the supervising officer's report with his hands clasped behind his back and his eyes moving over the inventory carts with the particular quality of attention that Kalen remembers from state strategy sessions. The attention of a man who is always looking for the thing that doesn't fit. The error. The gap. He is exactly as Kalen remembers. Except he looks tired in a way that has nothing to do with war. There are lines at the corners of his eyes that weren't there before. His jaw carries the particular set of a man who has been clenching it for a long time. He moves with the same precision, the same authority, the same cold containment, but underneath it, visible only if you know exactly where to look, is something that has been worn thinner than it used to be. Kalen knows where to look. He has always known where to look with Xiao Zhen. That was always the problem. He watches for 11 minutes. He does not move from the window. He holds the teacup and does not drink from it and watches the general review a supply manifest with the same attention he once gave troop positions in the war room, and he performs, internally, the same ruthless cataloging he has been performing for 3 years whenever this man surfaces in his thoughts uninvited. You feel this? Name it. Set it down. Move on. Grief. Still, inexplicably, grief, not for what Xiao Zhen did but for what existed before it, which was real, which Kalen has never been dishonest enough with himself to pretend wasn't real. Fury, banked low, the kind that has burned so long it has become structural. And underneath both of those, quieter and more inconvenient than either, the simple fact of relief. That he is here. That he is alive. That 3 years of imagining this moment did not produce an accurate picture of how it would feel to actually see him and have him be real and present and tired in a way that is not about war. Kalen sets all 3 things down. Moves on. He leaves the tea house at the 11th hour. He takes the long route back toward the apothecary, sweeping through the lower residential quarter, and he is thinking about garrison rotations and minister pairings and the border commander with a grievance, and he is not thinking about the lines at the corners of Xiao Zhen's eyes, and he turns a corner into the narrow lane that runs behind the silk district, and a hand closes around his arm. Not rough. Firm. The grip of someone who has been trained to restrain without injuring, which somehow makes it worse. This one's not on the list, the junior officer says to his partner, but his eyes are on Kalen's face with the dawning recognition of a man sorting through a memory he didn't expect to need. He is young, mid-20s, probably promoted under Xin Bao's reign, probably too young to have seen Kalen in court with any regularity. But the face. The Shin features are specific. The court portraits were specific. The recognition lands. The officer's grip tightens. Hold, he starts. Kalen does not move. Does not pull away. Does not shift his weight or change his expression or give the man's partner, hovering 2 steps back, any reason to put a hand on a weapon. He turns his head and looks at the officer. Directly. Fully. The look of a man who has stared down something considerably worse than a junior officer in a back lane and found it insufficient. Remove your hand, he says. Quietly. Without heat. Or lose it. The officer stares at him. The silence in the lane lasts 4 full seconds. Long enough for the partner to shift his weight. Long enough for the officer's grip to go from firm to uncertain. Then the hand releases. Kalen straightens his sleeve. He does not look at the partner. He does not look back at the officer. He turns and walks to the end of the lane and around the corner and out of their sight line before the officer's mouth has finished deciding whether to call after him. He does not run. He never runs. Lady Wen is measuring powders at the preparation room table when he returns. Shen Rue is on the floor beside her, deeply engaged in an organizational project involving her jar lids, which he has sorted by size with the focused intensity of someone who considers this matter urgent. He looks up when Kalen enters. Baba. This one doesn't fit, he announces, holding up a lid with the grievance of a man who has been wronged by its dimensions. Put it with the others that don't fit, Kalen says. Make a separate group. Shinrue considers this. Accepts it. Returns to his project. Lady Wen glances at Kalen over her powders. She reads his face the way she reads symptoms, not asking for the information, just noting what's there. The compound. Rotation changes at the 2nd and 7th hour. 2-man gate supervision on supply deliveries. He reviews them personally. You saw him. Not a question. I saw him, Kalen says. She waits. I need you to arrange a meeting, he says. Neutral ground. Private. Tell him. He stops. Considers. Tell him the matter concerns the eastern border garrison and a commander named Luo Tianhe. Don't use my name. He'll know. Yes. And you want him to come anyway. I want to see, Kalen says, whether he does. Lady Wen sets down her measuring spoon. She looks at him for a moment with the expression she reserves for things she has opinions about and has decided not to voice. Then she nods. On the floor, Shinrue holds up 2 lids that are apparently the same size. Baba. Twins, he says with the satisfaction of discovery. Good, Kalen says. Put them together. Shinrue puts them together. He pats them once, firmly, as if to confirm the arrangement. Then he looks up at Lady Wen with the evaluating expression Kalen has been watching him deploy all morning. The expression that is, whether either of them will admit it, not Kalen's expression at all. You have a lot of jars, Shinrue informs her. I do, she agrees. Why? Because things need to be kept separate, she says. So they don't mix when they shouldn't. Shinrue absorbs this with the gravity it apparently deserves. Then he returns to the lids. Kalen watches his son and does not think about the meeting coming, or the man who will either attend it or not, or what either answer will mean for the shape of what comes next. He thinks about garrison rotations. He is very nearly convincing. Chapter 3. The meeting is set for the 4th night. Lady Wen sends the message through a retired court scribe she has used for discreet communication since before Kalen was born. A man whose primary qualification is that he has survived 4 regime changes by being genuinely uninteresting to everyone involved in each of them. The message is brief. The eastern border matter. Luo Tianhe. A name Xiao Zhen will recognize. A location he will know how to find without drawing attention to the finding of it. The apothecary's back lane connects to a covered walkway that runs behind the Silk District and opens at its far end, into a narrow corridor between 2 storage buildings belonging to the Imperial Textile Works. The buildings are staffed during the day and empty at night. The corridor has 1 entrance from the lane and 1 from the outer Palace District Road. 2 ways in. 2 ways out. Kalen chose it for that reason. He arrives first. Of course he arrives first. He stands in the corridor and waits and does not think about whether Xiao Zhen will come. Either he comes or he doesn't. Either answer is information. Either answer advances the plan along one of the 2 routes Kalen has already mapped for both possibilities. This is how he has survived 3 years, not by hoping for specific outcomes but by preparing for all of them with equal rigor, so that no outcome can find him without a response already assembled and ready. This is what he tells himself. He waits. Xiao Zhen finishes the evening strategy briefing at the 2nd watch and dismisses his senior officers with the flat efficiency that has always been his signature. No ceremony, no excess. The meeting is over and there is nothing more to extract from prolonging it. His officers file out. He remains at the table for a moment, looking at the dispatch from the eastern border that arrived that afternoon. Luo Qianhe's sector. Routine patrol report. Nothing in it that explains why a message delivered through a retired scribe, through Lady Wen's retired scribe, which is the detail that stopped him cold, would invoke that name. He has been sitting with the message for 4 hours. He has read it 6 times. The message itself says almost nothing. It is the method of delivery that speaks. Lady Wen has not communicated with him since. She made her position clear in the weeks after the exile decree, in the specific silence of a woman who has nothing to say to someone she no longer respects. He did not blame her. He filed it alongside the other precise, deserved consequences of what he had done, of which there were many, of which he had kept careful internal account. Lady Wen does not contact him for routine matters. Lady Wen does not contact him at all. He folds the patrol report. He puts on his field coat instead of the formal one. He leaves the compound through the east side gate, which faces away from the main road, and he walks toward the Silk District, and he tells himself he is gathering intelligence. He is also gathering intelligence. The night is clear and cold, the kind of cold that sharpens the air into something almost edged. Xiaojun moves through the outer palace district with his hood up and his hands loose at his sides and his attention on the texture of the night, the sounds that belong and the sounds that don't, the shapes that move purposefully and the shapes that linger. He has been navigating cities at night since he was 19 years old. He knows how they breathe. He turns into the lane behind the Silk District. The covered walkway. The textile buildings ahead, their windows dark. He is 20 feet from the corridor entrance when it happens. He stops. Not a decision. Not a reasoned response. A physical stop, the kind the body makes before the mind has caught up because the mind is still processing and the body already knows. He has spent 3 years in this city and this city has 1,000 smells, coal and river water and incense from the temple district and the particular mineral sharpness of the imperial stone, and he knows all of them, has catalogued all of them, has used the catalogue to identify the single absence that has sat at the center of it for 3 years like a room with the furniture removed. White cedar. Cold water. Something underneath both that has no name in any language he knows and has been in the back of his skull every night for 1,012 days. He stands in the lane and does not move. The rational sequence assembles itself slowly, because some part of him is resisting it. Lady Wen. The retired scribe. The message with no real content. Luo Qianhe. A name used as a key, not a subject. The location with 2 exits. The scent. He walks to the corridor entrance. He steps through. The figure at the far end is still. Hooded, but the hood is back, pushed back, deliberate as if the decision to be seen has been made and is being held to. The posture is one Xiaojun knows in the specific way you know things you have spent years not thinking about. The particular set of the shoulders, the weight distributed slightly forward, the stillness that is not relaxation but its opposite. A stillness that is ready. He knows this before he sees the face. He sees the face and it confirms what he already knew and does nothing to help him. 3 years. The death report he filed himself, sitting at his desk at the second watch with the lamp burning and his hand moving across the paper in the steady, practiced way he had trained it to move even when the rest of him was not steady, was not practiced, was in fact coming apart at the precise seams he had spent his entire life reinforcing. He said, deceased. He wrote, deceased. He believed it, eventually, the way you believe things you need to be true in order to function. He knows the mechanism. He has used it before. He told himself the mechanism was sufficient. Standing in this corridor he discovers it was not. You're alive, he says. It comes out flat. Not relief, or not only relief, and not guilt, though the guilt is there, has always been there, lives in him now like a second skeleton. Just the fact of it, stated in the voice of a man who has just discovered that a structural assumption he has been building on for 3 years is not structural at all. Kalen looks at him. In the parallel space of his own perception, in the 100 ways he imagined this moment across 1,012 nights, he prepared a version of himself for it. Composed. Strategic. A man who has reduced this to its functional components and approaches it accordingly. The version of himself that is actually standing in this corridor is composed. Is strategic. Is, by any external measure, exactly the man he prepared. He is also aware, with the precise and unwanted clarity of a body that remembers things the mind has tried to reclassify, of every inch of distance between them. The corridor is not wide. Disappointed, he says. He replaces the hood. The decision is already made. He came here to confirm that Xiaojun would come, and Xiaojun has come, and that is the information he needed, and the meeting place for the actual conversation has already been arranged and is not this corridor and is not tonight. Tonight was a test and Xiao Jun has passed it, and that is all tonight needs to be. He moves. Past him. Close enough that the corridor requires it. Close enough that he can feel the air change with proximity in the way it always did, the particular atmospheric pressure of an alpha that his body has never had the decency to be indifferent to. Xiao Jun's hand moves. Kalen feels it before he sees it. The shift of weight, the beginning of the gesture, a hand rising toward his arm in the motion of a man who has not yet decided whether he is allowed to complete it. The hand stops. Does not complete. Kalen keeps walking. His pulse is even. His breathing is even. His hands in the sleeves of the undyed coat are perfectly still. He reaches the corridor entrance. Turns into the lane. Behind him he hears nothing. No footsteps following. No voice. He doesn't look back. He never looks back. It is the one rule he set himself leaving the northern gate 3 years ago, and it is the one rule he has not broken since. In the corridor, Xiao Jun does not move for a long time. The scent is already fading, white cedar, cold water, the unnamed thing, replaced by the ordinary night air of the Silk District, coal smoke and river damp. He stands and lets it go and understands, with the flat precision he applies to tactical defeats, that he was wrong. Not about the decree. He knows the shape of that wrongness with exhaustive familiarity. He has lived inside it for 3 years, has mapped every corner of it, has sat with it at the second watch on 100 nights with the lamp burning and the death report somewhere in the files and the knowledge of what he wrote in his own hand. He was wrong about the mechanism. About the sufficiency of deciding a thing is finished. About the particular belief, which he now identifies as the most expensive belief he has ever held, that 1012 days is enough time to reclassify something that was never going to be reclassified. That the body forgets what the mind instructs it to forget. His hand is still raised slightly. He looks at it. He lowers it. He stood in the corridor and his hand moved toward Kalen before he had made any decision about moving it, before he had done anything except register that the distance between them was corridor width, and that is information. About the state of his own architecture. About what 3 years of careful structural maintenance has and has not accomplished. He notes it, files it, begins to walk back toward the compound. Kalen is alive. Kalen is here. Kalen has come back to this city for a reason, and the reason is not Xiao Jun. It is larger than Xiao Jun. It is the throne and the bloodline and the usurper and the empire. It is every legitimate and serious thing, and Xiao Jun is a general with an army and a strategic value, and those are the terms of whatever comes next. Those are the only terms he has any right to. He walks. He is nearly to the compound gate when he stops again, because something else has arrived, slower than the scent, working its way through the back channels of the evening's information with the particular patience of a detail that knows it will land eventually. The posture. The stillness in the corridor. The way Kalen replaced the hood and walked past him, not quickly, not with the urgency of someone unsettled, but with the steady, measured pace of someone who had come to the corridor to confirm a specific thing and had confirmed it and was done. The patience of someone who has been planning. Xiao Jun stands in the road outside the compound gate. Kalen did not come to this corridor to confront him. Did not come to accuse or demand or collapse the 3 years between them into a single scene. He came to see if Xiao Jun would show up. That was the only purpose. A test of a variable. Which means there is more. A next step already designed. A plan already in motion that required this data point and has now acquired it and will proceed accordingly. Xiao Jun looks at the gate. Looks at the road behind him. He is a general. He knows the difference between a skirmish and the opening movement of a campaign. He goes inside. He sits at his desk. The lamp burns. He does not sleep for a very long time. Chapter 4. Lady Wen's preparation room holds a work table, 2 chairs, a wall of shelving that has never once had empty space on it, and a window that faces the inner courtyard where she grows the plants she can't source from traders. It is a room built for function. There is nowhere in it to hide, nowhere to position yourself at an angle that softens what's happening. Everything in it is exactly what it appears to be. Kalen chose it deliberately. He is already seated when Xiao Jun arrives. At the table, not at the window, not standing. Seated is not a defensive position. Seated says, I was here first, I am not anxious about your arrival, I have arranged this and I am comfortable in the arrangement. He has a cup of water in front of him that he has not touched. He does not offer another. Xiao Jun steps through the door and takes in the room with the single sweep of a man cataloging a space for exits and variables. He finds both chairs, both occupied potentials, and selects the one across the table from Kalen without being invited to. He sits. He does not remove his coat. They look at each other. 3 years and a corridor and now a table between them and the lamp burning and the city outside making its ordinary nighttime sounds, and the weight of everything that has not yet been said sitting in the room with the patience of something that has been waiting a long time and is not in a hurry. Kalen speaks first. He had decided he would. I need the army, he says. Specifically, I need you to withdraw support from Shinbao. Not publicly, not yet. A staged withdrawal, beginning with the eastern garrison. Luo Qinha has grievances that are real and documented, and I intend to use them. I need your network of senior commanders, the ones whose loyalty is to you personally and not to the throne as currently occupied. I need them positioned and ready to move on a signal that you and I will agree on before I take any further steps. He pauses. In exchange, when the throne is restored, your commission is confirmed, your garrison expanded to include the northern border territories, and the 43 battalion soldiers whose lives were used as leverage against you are formally decorated and their families compensated from the imperial treasury. Another pause. I know about the 43. Lady Wen does thorough work. He stops. He has said what he came to say. Now he waits. Xiao Zhen is looking at him with an expression that is not quite readable, not the flat command face he wears in public, but something adjacent to it, something with more working underneath. He is quiet for long enough that it becomes a considered silence rather than a processing one. Then, you don't understand what signing that decree cost. Enlighten me, Kalen says. From your very comfortable position. The words land. He watches them land. He does not take them back. They are accurate, they are earned, and he is not interested in managing Xiao Zhen's comfort. Xiao Zhen holds his gaze. He does not flinch from the words and he does not deflect them, which is, Kalen notes it, the response of a man who agrees with them. Shin Bao moved the night of the ambush, Xiao Zhen says. You were already unconscious when they brought the decree to me. The ambush was fast, faster than any intelligence I had suggested. He'd been planning it for longer than we knew. He stops. Starts again more precisely. He had 43 of my men detained before I was summoned. Not threatened. Detained, in the lower garrison cells, already processed, already documented as pending execution pending my cooperation. He showed me the orders. The execution timeline was 4 hours. Kalen says nothing. You were unconscious. I had no way to reach you, no way to get word to anyone loyal to you before the 4 hours elapsed. The decree was already written. He needed only my seal. Xiao Zhen's voice is even. He is not delivering this as a defense, he is delivering it as a record. As the accounting he owes. I made the calculation available to me. I have had 3 years to determine whether a different calculation existed that I missed. I have not found one. That does not mean, he stops. That does not mean the calculation was correct. It means it was the only one I could see. The room is very quiet. Kalen looks at the table. At the cup of water he hasn't touched. At the grain of the wood, which is ordinary and specific and present in the way that objects are when everything else in the room is too large to look at directly. He has had 3 years with this. 3 years to build the version of events in which Xiao Zhen acted from ambition, from indifference, from the cold arithmetic of a man who weighed Kalen against convenience and found Kalen insufficient. That version was useful. That version kept him moving through the Wuling Mountains in winter with a fever and a pregnancy and nothing else. That version was structural. The version Xiao Zhen has just described is not different enough from what Kalen had already, in his most honest moments, suspected. That is almost worse. A betrayal from ambition can be hated cleanly. A betrayal from an impossible corner, made by a man who was also trapped, who also lost something in the making of it, that requires a more complicated accounting. He is not ready to do that accounting tonight. He files it. He returns to the table. I believe you, he says. His voice is even. That changes the strategic picture in specific ways and does not change other things. I think you understand which things. Yes, Xiao Zhen says. Then we don't need to discuss those things tonight. Kalen. We don't need to discuss them tonight, he says again, not hard, not sharp, but final in the way of a door that is closed and will be opened on his timeline and not someone else's. What I need from you tonight is a commitment or its absence. Everything else is subsequent. Xiao Zhen looks at him for a long moment. Something moves in his face, complex and brief and then contained again, returned to the architecture of control that Kalen knows as well as he knows his own. The 12 senior commanders, Xiao Zhen says. I can speak to them. I can't promise their answer, but I can tell you that 10 of the 12 have expressed, carefully, indirectly, that their loyalty to Shin Bao is conditional and the conditions have been eroding. And the other 2? One is genuinely loyal to the throne as an institution and will follow whoever sits on it convincingly. One I am less certain of. Name. Commander Pei Shuhan. Kalen doesn't know the name. Post-exile appointment, then, Shin Bao's placement. Keep him out of the initial conversations. Already my intention. Kalen nods. He picks up the water cup. Drinks. Sets it down. I need 3 weeks, he says. To build the civilian network. The ministers, the border commander, a trade guild contact lady one has identified who controls the southern supply routes. When I move, I need the political and economic architecture in place before the military component activates. The army without the court behind it is a coup. The court without the army behind it is a petition. I need both. 3 weeks is manageable, Xiaojin says. The Eastern Garrison rotation gives me a natural cover for increased communication with Luo Tianhe. I can have preliminary conversations with the 10 commanders within the first week under the guise of a readiness review. Don't use my name. I wasn't going to. Don't use the word restoration. I know how to have an indirect conversation. I know you do, Kalen says. I'm telling you anyway. Something shifts in Xiaojin's expression, almost not quite something wry. The ghost of an expression Kalen remembers from before. He does not react to it. They have reached the end of what tonight requires. Kalen can feel the shape of the conversation completing itself, the terms established, the next steps agreed. He reaches for the lamp to adjust the wick. A closing gesture, the meeting is done, and at that exact moment the door to the back room opens. Shinrue stands in the doorway. He is wearing the small sleeping robe lady one produced from somewhere with the matter-of-fact efficiency of a woman who has been quietly prepared for this since the moment she opened her door 3 days ago. His hair is disordered from sleep. He has one hand on the doorframe and is looking at the room with the calm, evaluating expression of a child who has woken in unfamiliar places enough times to have developed a procedure for it. Orient, identify, assess. He finds Kalen. His expression settles. Then he finds Xiaojin. He does not look away. Children Shinrue's age are supposed to be shy with strangers. Most of them are, in Kalen's experience, most of them fold toward the known adult and away from the unknown one. Shinrue looks at Xiaojin with the direct, undefended attention of a child who has not yet learned that looking directly at things is something adults manage carefully. He is looking at a stranger. That is all he knows. Kalen watches Xiaojin look back. He watches the moment it happens. The thing he knew would happen, the thing Lady Wen knew would happen, the thing that is unavoidable because Shinrue did not inherit Kalen's features. He has Kalen's eyes, yes, the particular shape of them, the slight downward pull at the outer corners. But the jaw is not Kalen's jaw. The brow is not Kalen's brow. The way he holds his chin at a slight upward angle when he is assessing something, the specific proportion of his face. Xiaojin goes very still. Not the stillness of command. Not the controlled stillness of a man in a meeting. A different stillness. The stillness of a man whose processing has exceeded the capacity of his external presentation to keep up with. He looks at the child. He looks at Kalen. Kalen meets his eyes. He says nothing. He does not confirm. He does not deny. He holds the eye contact with the steady level patience of a man who has been carrying this for 3 years and has gotten very good at carrying it and is not going to be the one who names it in this room tonight. Xiaojin looks back at Shinrue. Shinrue, who has been observing this exchange with the patience of someone who doesn't know what it means but can tell it means something, makes his decision. He crosses the room to Kalen. He wraps both arms around Kalen's leg, not frightened, just claiming, the gesture of a child establishing the primary coordinate from which all other things in the room can be measured. Kalen puts one hand on top of his head. Xiaojin watches this. He watches Kalen's hand settle on the boy's head, the automatic ease of it, the gesture of a man who has done this 10,000 times, who knows the exact weight and warmth of this specific head under his palm. He watches Shinrue lean into it without looking up, already satisfied, already returned to the simple business of being 3 years old in a room full of adults. Something happens in Xiaojin's face. It is brief and it is large and then it is gone. Returned to the architecture, contained, filed somewhere Kalen cannot see. He stands. 3 weeks, he says. His voice is even. It cost him something to make it even. Kalen can hear the cost. 3 weeks, Kalen confirms. Xiaojin moves to the door. He pauses with his hand on the frame, the same threshold pause from the corridor 2 nights ago, the same almost completed gesture. He does not look back at Shinrue. Kalen thinks this is because he cannot, currently, and knows it, and is making the only decision available to him. He leaves. Kalen stands in the preparation room with his son's arms around his leg and the lamp burning and the sound of Xiao Zhen's footsteps fading down the back lane, and he breathes in and breathes out and performs the cataloging. He felt Xiao Zhen work it out. He watched it move across his face, the jaw, the brow, the arithmetic of features that don't come from Kalen's bloodline, and underneath the cataloging, underneath the strategic assessment of how this changes the balance of what they owe each other, underneath all of it, the thing he will not name tonight. He looks down at his son. Was that a soldier? Shinrue asks with interest. Yes, Kalen says. He's very big. He is. Shinrue considers this. Is he going to help us? Kalen looks at the door. Yes, he says. I think he is. Chapter 5. The silence lasts 3 days. Kalen works through it. He has always worked better in silence than in noise. Silence is information neutral. Silence does not interrupt. Silence allows the architecture of a plan to be built without the structural interference of other people's urgency. He contacts the first minister on Lady Wen's list through a secondary channel, a calligrapher's apprentice who delivers correspondence to the administrative quarter and whose face no one in the administrative quarter has ever thought to remember. He begins the careful, patient work of mapping which court officials are genuinely loyal to Shinbao and which are performing loyalty the way people perform things when the cost of stopping is too high to calculate. He spends an afternoon with Lady Wen going through 3 years of court records she has accumulated, procurement orders, ministry appointments, the subtle reorganization of institutional power that a usurper performs in the first year of consolidating a stolen throne. He notes the patterns. He builds a picture. He is good at this, better than he was before because before he trusted his instincts about people more than the evidence and the evidence is more reliable. He does not think about the silence from Xiao Zhen. He notes it the way he notes all variables and returns to the work. Shinrue is adjusting to Lady Wen with the pragmatic speed of a child who has learned to adjust quickly or go without. By the second day he is following her through the preparation room asking questions about every jar. What is this? What does it do? Does it taste bad? Why? And Lady Wen is answering each one with the same level seriousness she would give a medical apprentice, which Shinrue receives as his due. By the third day he has been given a small task, sorting dried herbs by color into groups she specifies. He performs this with complete dedication. He is, Kalen thinks, going to be someone who needs work the way some people need air. He comes by it honestly from both directions. Kalen does not think about that either. On the first night of the silence, Xiao Zhen pulls the birth records. Not all of them. A complete birth record search would create a trail, would require formal access requests, would be visible in the archive logs to anyone looking. He doesn't need all of them. He knows the approximate date range. He knows the relevant bloodline. He knows the name of the physician who served the second prince's household before the exile. Lady Wen's archive entries are meticulous and complete up to a specific date and then, for a period of approximately 4 months, they contain a gap. Not a deletion. A gap. The entries before it and after it are present, logged, unremarkable. The gap itself is the document. A woman who has maintained records for 30 years without interruption does not accidentally produce a 4-month absence unless the absence is the point. Xiao Zhen sits with the archive entry for a long time. The dates resolve against each other with the flat, mechanical precision of arithmetic that does not care what it means to the person doing it. The last night they were together, which was before the decree, which was 6 weeks before the decree, which was a night he has returned to in his own mind more times than he can account for and always in the same way, always with the same result, the same conclusion he made the morning after and then buried under the decree and the death report and 1012 days of deliberate structural forgetting. He knew. He told Kalen, in the apothecary, that he knew, and that was true. He did know. Some part of him knew the moment he made the decision that there were consequences he was also deciding for that he had no right to decide for. He knew when he signed the decree and he wrote the death report and he told himself the mechanism was sufficient. In the archive room, alone, with the gap in the records in front of him, he understands with complete clarity that he is the reason Kalen went through whatever came after. He closes the archive. He returns to the compound. He sits at his desk. He does not send a message. On the second night, an aide mentions the mountains. It is not intended as significant information. The aide is summarizing a patrol report from the Western Territories, and the Wuling Range comes up as geographical context for a border marker dispute, and the aide says the range by name in the flat tone of someone for whom it is simply a location and then moves on to the next item. Xiao Zhen stops him. The Wuling Range, he says. The Northern Passage. What's the condition this time of year? The aide blinks. Currently? Accessible general. The thaw has been through. But in winter, He pauses, recalibrating to why this is being asked. In winter the northern passage is effectively impassable. The southern route can be navigated but it would be a difficult transit for an experienced mountain soldier. For a civilian it would be. What would it require, Xiaojun says. Specifically, winter crossing. Southern route. One person traveling alone. The aide is uncertain why he is being asked to calculate this. He calculates it anyway because the general is waiting. He names the provisions required, the shelter demands, the physical toll of altitude and cold combined, the specific danger zones where the route narrows and exposure becomes critical. He mentions, with the neutral accuracy of someone delivering technical information, that a winter crossing of the southern wooling route in the 3rd or 4th month of pregnancy would be. He stops. Looks up. Xiaojun's face is doing nothing. It is completely still in the way that it gets sometimes, the way his senior officers have learned to read as a weather sign, not the controlled stillness of command but the prior stillness, the one that comes before it. Thank you, Xiaojun says. That's all. The aide leaves. Xiaojun does not speak for the rest of the day. His officers note this and make the adjustments experienced officers make when a general has gone somewhere internal. They route decisions through the second-in-command, they keep the afternoon briefing concise, they do not ask questions that are not operationally urgent. At the second watch he dismisses everyone and sits alone. He does the calculation the aide refused to complete. He does it precisely, accounting for every variable the aide named and several the aide didn't. The fever risk at altitude, the caloric requirements of a body doing what a body does in those months, the toll of carrying additional weight over terrain that challenges unencumbered soldiers. He calculates what it would have taken. What it would have required from a person who was doing it alone, who had no support structure, who had been sent into that terrain by a decree bearing his seal. He sits with the calculation for a long time. Then he does something he has not done in 3 years. He opens the bottom drawer of his desk. He removes the document that lives there, the only copy of the exile decree he kept, folded 4 times, the paper worn soft at the creases from handling he has never quite been able to stop himself from doing. He unfolds it. He looks at his seal. He refolds it. He puts it back. He does not sleep. On the 3rd night he goes to the safe house. He does not send word ahead. He stands in the street outside for long enough to confirm that the building is occupied and quiet and not under surveillance, and then he knocks, twice and then once. The pattern from Lady Wen's original message reversed. A long pause. Then the sound of movement. Then silence. Someone on the other side assessing the pattern, assessing the situation. Then the door opens. Kalen looks at him. He is dressed for wakefulness, not sleep. He was working then. Still working at the 3rd watch. He looks at Xiaojun in the doorway with the expression he has been wearing since the corridor. Level, contained, giving nothing away without deciding to give it. You didn't send word, Kalen says. No. It's the 3rd watch. I know. Pause. Kalen does not move from the doorway. He is making a decision. Xiaojun can see it happening, can see the assessment, the calculation. The same thing he watched in the archive entry gap, in the aide's unfinished calculation. The same thing his seal produced. Come inside, Kalen says. Shinrue wakes if he hears voices at the door. The main room has a table covered in papers. Maps, minister lists, supply route documents, a correspondence draft in Kalen's tight, precise hand. Kalen moves to the table and turns the most sensitive documents face down with the automatic habit of a man who has learned not to leave information visible, and then stops and looks at the turned-down documents and then, decision, turns them back over. He sits. He does not invite Xiaojun to sit. Xiaojun sits anyway in the chair across from the table and looks at the maps. The southern supply routes, he says. You're moving faster than 3 weeks. The southern routes are preliminary. They don't activate until the main movement begins. Kalen pauses. I said I needed 3 weeks. I didn't say I'd be idle for 3 weeks. The minister contacts. How many have confirmed? 3 firm. 2 probable. 1 I'm still reading. Which one? Minister Ho Bingwen. 2nd tier, infrastructure appointment. He's been passed over for the senior council twice but he still shows up early to every session Shinbao convenes. I can't determine if that's genuine investment or performance. It's performance, Xiaojun says. Ho Bingwen's eldest son was stationed at the eastern garrison under Luo Tianhe. He was reassigned to a decorative court position 6 months ago, effectively demoted. Ho Bingwen has been punctual and visible at every session since. He is managing optics. Kalen looks at him. You know Ho Bingwen. I know everyone Shinbao has reason to watch. I've been watching the same people from a different direction. Then you've been building something too. Xiaojin meets his eyes. Did you think I wasn't? The room settles around this. Outside, the city is quiet. The third watch quiet, the specific absence of sound that belongs to the hours when even the night vendors have gone home. The lamp on Kalen's table burns low and steady. The commanders, Kalen says. Have you spoken to them? Preliminary contact with 4. The responses were unambiguous. Unambiguously in favor? Unambiguously waiting, Xiaojin says. They've been waiting for a reason. They needed to know the reason was real. And now they know. Pause. I told them I had confirmation the bloodline was intact. That the exile had not achieved its purpose. Kalen is quiet for a moment. You told them I was alive. I told them the bloodline was intact, Xiaojin says again precisely. I did not use your name. I did not use a location. I gave them enough to hold and not enough to move on without me. Good. Another silence. It is a different quality of silence from the earlier ones. Not empty, not the silence of things not yet said, but the silence of two people who are both aware that they are building something in this room that has more than one layer and are, by mutual unspoken agreement, working on the layer that is manageable tonight. Then Xiaojin says, I looked at the birth records. Kalen's hands on the table are still. The gap, Xiaojin says. Lady Wen's archive entry. 4 months. I know what the gap is. I know you know. He pauses. I did the calculation. The Wuling crossing. Winter. Southern route. The silence that follows this is of a completely different order. Kalen does not move. He is looking at the maps on the table with the quality of attention that has nothing to do with the maps. Don't, he says very quietly. Kalen. Do not, he says, sit in my room at the third watch and tell me you've calculated what it cost. I was there. I don't need your calculation. He stops. Breeze. Returns to the level voice. What I need is the 12 commanders and the Eastern garrison in 3 weeks. That is what I need from you. The rest of it, he stops again. The rest of it, Xiaojin says, is also real. I know it's real. Kalen looks up. I said don't. I didn't say it wasn't real. Xiaojin holds his gaze. He nods once, accepting the boundary, accepting the terms. He does not push further. He understands, Kalen thinks, better than almost anyone would, the architecture of controlled processing. Of putting things in the place where they can be survived until they can be examined properly. He has been doing the same thing from his own direction for 3 years. From the back room, a small sound, Shinrue turning in his sleep, resettling, going quiet again. Both of them go still when it happens. Both of them wait until the quiet returns. The simultaneity of it is not lost on either of them. The 4 commanders you've spoken to, Kalen says, returning to the maps. I need their names. Xiaojin gives them. Kalen writes them in his precise hand at the edge of the map. They work for another hour, supply routes and garrison positions and the timing sequence for the initial movement, building the architecture with the focused, complementary efficiency of 2 people who have, it turns out, been building toward the same structure from opposite ends. At the 4th watch, Kalen sets down the brush. Go, he says. You need to be back before the morning rotation. Xiaojin stands. He looks at the maps, at the thing they have built in the last hour, the shape of a plan that is becoming real. Then he looks at Kalen. 3 weeks, he says. Less now, Kalen says. We're further along than I thought. Something moves in Xiaojin's face, brief and unguarded and gone. He moves to the door. Xiaojin, Kalen says. He stops. The calculation, Kalen says. He does not look up from the maps. I know you did it. I know what it means that you did it. Pause. That's all. Xiaojin stands in the doorway for a moment. Then he goes. Kalen sits alone at the table with the maps and the lamp burning down and the sound of his son sleeping in the back room, and he allows himself, precisely 30 seconds, he has always been specific about the duration, to feel the full weight of what is happening. The plan. The commanders. The 3 weeks becoming less. And Xiaojin in the doorway who did the calculation, who came at the 3rd watch without sending word, who said the rest of it is also real and accepted the boundary when Kalen drew it. 30 seconds. Then he picks up the brush and returns to the maps. Chapter 6. The rumor reaches Shinbao on a Tuesday. It comes through the Obsidian Fold's Eastern Network, a junior intelligence officer who noticed a pattern in the merchant district 3 days running. The same face in different locations, different clothing, different posture, but the same face. The officer is young and has never seen the exiled prince in person. What he has seen is the court portrait in the restricted archive, which he accessed 6 months ago as part of a standard loyalty clearance review and which lodged in his memory the way certain images do, not because he expected to need it but because the face was specific. The particular set of the features. The downward pull at the outer corners of the eyes. He files a report. He rates it probable rather than confirmed, because he is careful and he knows the difference between what he saw and what he can prove. The report reaches the Obsidian Folds director at the evening briefing. The director reads it twice. He does not wait for morning. Shen Bao receives the report at the 9th hour of the evening, in the private study behind the throne room where he conducts the business he does not want recorded in official session logs. He reads it once. He sets it down. He picks it up and reads it again with the quality of attention of a man who is looking for the error that will make it not true. He does not find the error. He is not, by nature, a man who panics. He is precise and patient, and he has always understood that power is maintenance, that a throne is not seized once but every day, through the accumulation of small controls that prevent large threats from assembling. He has been maintaining for 3 years. He has been thorough. The report in his hand suggests that his thoroughness had a gap in it. He calls for the Obsidian Folds director. He calls for his personal security commander. He does not call for Xiao Jin. Not yet, not until he has determined the shape of what he is dealing with, because Xiao Jin is a resource that must be deployed precisely or not at all. The general's value is in his army. His army is his loyalty. His loyalty is, Shen Bao has never been entirely comfortable with the precise object of Xiao Jin's loyalty, which has always felt like it terminates somewhere Shen Bao cannot quite see. He will deal with that uncertainty tonight. Sweep the merchant districts, he tells the director. Eastern Quarter first, then the Silk District, then the outer residential lanes. I want every apothecary, every boarding house, every address associated with anyone who served the previous administration flagged and visited by morning. Confirmed sightings or preventive? The director asks. Both, Shen Bao says. If he's here, I want him found. If he's not, I want the infrastructure he would use to be identified and watched. The director nods. He leaves. Shen Bao sits alone in the private study for a moment. He looks at the court portrait of his brother that he had moved here from the gallery, not out of sentiment, but because he has always believed in knowing your threat's face. He has looked at it many times in 3 years. He has never looked at it the way he is looking at it now. He has the portrait removed to storage before he calls in his security commander. Kalen knows something is wrong before he sees the soldiers. It is the quality of the evening, the way the merchant district is moving, slightly faster than it should be, the vendors closing up an hour early, the particular kind of alertness in the street that comes when people who have learned to read official danger have read it and are quietly adjusting. He has been in enough unstable situations to recognize collective threat response when he sees it. The body of a city reacting to a pressure its individual people can name but have not yet said aloud. He is 2 streets from the apothecary when he sees the first Obsidian Fold unit. 4 men in unmarked coats moving through the Silk District with the coordinated spacing of a search pattern. Not random patrol. Systematic. Working towards something. He stops walking. He catalogs, 4 men that unit. Another unit visible at the far end of the street, same spacing. Which means there are more units he can't see working the parallel lanes. A coordinated sweep, not a response to a specific sighting. A net being drawn from multiple points toward a center. The center is the apothecary district. He is moving before he has finished the thought. Not running because running in a sweep zone is information, but walking with the specific purposeful pace of a man who has somewhere to be that is not where the soldiers are going. He takes the back route, the covered walkway, the textile lane, the rear entrance to the residential block that abuts Lady Wen's building. He is inside in 3 minutes. Lady Wen is already at the preparation room table with Shinrue in her arms. Not distressed, she does not do distressed, but her movements have the compressed efficiency of a woman who has assessed a situation and is already inside her response to it. Shinrue is awake and quiet in the particular way he gets when the adults around him are moving with purpose. He has learned to read the room. Kalen's chest tightens briefly at this. The skill his son has, the reason his son has it. How long? Kalen says. The first unit passed the front street 20 minutes ago, Lady Wen says. They didn't stop. Continuing pattern. They'll circle back. Systematic sweep, they're flagging addresses, not searching them yet. The searches come second. He is already at the table, moving papers into the document case he keeps packed for exactly this contingency. This building is on their list. You served the previous administration. They'll know that. I've served every administration, she says. I treated Shin Bao's mother for 12 years. That buys you complicated, not safe. He closes the case. I need to move Shinrue tonight. Where? He has 3 contingency locations. He runs through them against the sweep pattern he's observed. The eastern boarding house is too close to the first unit's trajectory, the textile merchant storage is accessible but has only 1 exit, and the third. The calligrapher, he says. The apprentice who carries correspondence. Does he live above the shop? He does. Can you get a message to him in the next hour without using the front street? Yes. Tell him I need the upper room for 3 days. Tell him it's the kind of request that comes with significant gratitude and significant risk, and he should make the decision that suits him. Kalen pauses. He'll say yes. He has said yes to this kind of thing before, or you wouldn't have used him. Lady Wen nods. She is already settling Shinrue more securely against her hip, freeing one hand for writing. And you? I'll take him there myself tonight. Then I need to get word to Xiaozhen. She looks at him over Shinrue's head, the look she uses when she has something to say and is deciding whether tonight is the night to say it. The sweep, she says carefully. This is Shinbao moving from paranoid to active. Once he starts sweeping, he doesn't stop until he finds something or exhausts the possibility. I know. You're 3 weeks. Compresses, Kalen says. I know. Shinrue goes to the calligrapher's upper room without complaint. This is, Kalen thinks, both a testament to his son's adaptability and an indictment of the circumstances that built it. The calligrapher, a quiet man in his 50s who has the specific brand of courage that lives in people who have decided their conscience is more important than their safety, takes one look at Kalen's face and says yes before the request is fully out. Kalen settles Shinrue on the sleeping mat in the upper room. He stays until the boy is asleep, which takes less time than it should. Shinrue dropped into sleep with the practiced efficiency of a child whose body has learned to take rest when rest is available, without requiring the conditions to be ideal first. Kalen watches him sleep for a moment. Baba will be back before you wake, he says quietly. He does not know if this is true. He says it anyway because it has always been true before and he intends to keep the record. He goes back into the night. The message to Xiaozhen is 6 words, sent through the calligrapher via a route that does not pass through the Silk District. The fold is active. Timeline moves. Xiaozhen's response arrives in 40 minutes. For words, I know. Stay inside. Kalen reads this twice. Feels something that is not quite irritation and not quite something warmer. The specific friction of receiving an instruction from someone who does not have the authority to give it and is giving it anyway from a place that is not authority but something adjacent to it. He does not stay inside. He has 3 minister contacts to alert and a border commander's liaison to reach before morning, and Xiaozhen's instruction, however well-sourced, does not change that. He sends back 2 words, you first. The summons comes at midnight. Xiaozhen enters the throne room, the private audience chamber behind it, smaller, the room Shinbao uses for conversations he wants to have without witnesses, and presents himself with the bearing that has been his armor since he was 19 years old. Complete, impenetrable, the full presentation of a man who is exactly what he appears to be. Shinbao looks at him from the chair behind the low table. He has the obsidian fold report in his hands. He has been looking at it, Xiaozhen notes, for long enough that the paper has acquired the soft handling wear of a document that has been picked up and put down many times. Sit, Shinbao says. Xiaozhen sits. The fold has a probable sighting of my brother in the merchant district. Shinbao sets the report on the table between them, face up, deliberate, watching Xiaozhen's eyes. 3-day pattern. Same face in different locations. Same features as the portrait. Probable, Xiaozhen says. Not confirmed. Probable is sufficient to act on. Pause. I'm increasing the sweeps. Full merchant and residential quarter coverage by morning. I want the apothecary district prioritized, the old court physician Lady Wen. She was loyal to my brother's household. She treats half the capital, Xiaozhen says. Including your own household staff. Which is why she's a priority and not already in a cell. Xiaozhen says nothing. Shinbao looks at him with the quality of attention he has always used with the general. Careful, searching, looking for the thing that doesn't fit. Xiaozhen meets it with the bearing, with the armor, with the complete presentation of a man who is exactly what he appears to be. If he's found, Shinbao says slowly, watching Xiaozhen's face, I will need the matter handled with finality. The exile decree was, apparently, insufficient. Another pause longer. I need to know that you understand what finality means in this context. The room is very quiet. Xiaozhen holds Shinbao's gaze for exactly as long as a loyal general should. He lets the weight of the instruction settle. He lets his expression do the thing it has always done in this room. Nothing, and then the controlled, considered nod of a man who has processed an order and will execute it. I understand, he says. Good. Shinbao sits back. Then I trust this is handled. It will be handled, Xiaojin says. He is out of the throne room in 4 minutes. He is out of the palace district in 8. He does not go back to the compound. He sends a message through a route that does not exist in any Obsidian Fold record. A route he built 3 years ago for reasons he told himself at the time were purely strategic, to an address in the residential quarter adjacent to the Calligrapher Street. The message is 6 words. Move him again. Tonight. No. He adds 4 more which he has not sent before, which are not strategic but are true. Shinbao wants you dead. Then, because there is a thing he has been not doing for 3 years and the Obsidian Fold is in the streets and Shinbao just used the word finality in a private audience chamber, he adds one final line. I will not let that happen. He stands in the street and looks at what he has written. He sends it anyway. Kalen reads the message in the calligrapher's upper room, standing over his sleeping son in the dark. He reads all 3 parts. He reads the last line twice. He folds the paper. He looks at Shinrui. He looks at the window, at the city outside, at the night that has just changed its shape from 3 weeks to something considerably less. He is not afraid. He has not been afraid in a long time. Fear was a luxury the Wuling Mountains took from him and replaced with something more functional. But he is aware, with precise clarity, of what is at stake in a way that has nothing to do with thrones. He puts his hand briefly on Shinrue's back, sleeping, warm, entirely unaware. Not yet, he says quietly. Not to Shinrui. Not to Xiaojin. To Shinbao, wherever he is in that palace, in that stolen life, with his obsidian fold and his sweeps and his word finality. Not yet. He picks up his son without waking him. He begins to move. Chapter 7. The meeting happens in the Eastern Garrison's war room at the hour before dawn, when the night watch is changing and the gap in rotation creates a 12-minute window in which the room can hold 13 people without that fact appearing in any record. Xiaojin has been precise about the 12. He has been building toward this conversation for 3 years without knowing he was building toward it, making small deposits of honesty with each man, the kind of honesty that doesn't announce itself but accumulates so that when the moment comes the ground is already prepared and what he is asking does not arrive in a vacuum. He knows these men. He knows which ones lead with instinct and which ones lead with evidence and which ones need the question framed as duty before they can access what they actually feel about it. He has tailored 12 versions of the last 3 days of preliminary contact accordingly. They arrive in pairs and alone, through different entrances within a 6-minute window. They take their positions around the table with the practiced ease of men who have stood in this room for 100 strategy sessions. They look at Xiaojin. They wait. He does not open with the question. He opens with the truth. 3 years ago, he says, I signed an exile decree under duress. 43 of your men from your battalions, were held in the lower garrison cells with execution orders already processed. I was given 4 hours and 1 option. The room is very still. I made the calculation available to me. I have had 3 years to determine whether that calculation was correct. I have concluded that it was the only calculation I could see and that it was insufficient. He pauses. I am telling you this because what I am about to ask requires you to trust my judgment, and you cannot do that honestly if you don't know the shape of it. Commander Liang, the eldest, who has served under Xiaojin for 14 years, the 43. They're the Eastern Battalion rotation, current assignment. Yes. You had them decorated last year. Quietly. No ceremony, no citation. Yes. Liang nods once. He asked the question to confirm what he already knew. He is already where Xiaojin needs him to be, has been Xiaojin suspects for longer than tonight. The exile decree, says Commander Tan, second from the left, the youngest of the 12 and the one whose loyalty Xiaojin has always read as genuine rather than performed, a quality rare enough to be valuable. It achieved its intended purpose? No, Xiaojin says. It did not. The room absorbs this. The bloodline is intact, Xiaojin says. The exile did not hold. I have confirmation of this, direct, recent, unambiguous confirmation. I have additionally confirmed that the bloodline has extended. He pauses here because this is the part he has rehearsed least, the part where the professional and the personal are the same fact and cannot be separated. There is an heir. 3 years old. Healthy. Silence. Commander Fei, who is the most politically careful of the 12, who has survived 3 administration changes by being the last to speak and the first to understand, an heir to the second prince's line. Yes. Whose other line? The room waits. Mine, Xiaojun says. The silence that follows this is of a completely different quality from the previous ones. It is the silence of 12 experienced military men processing a piece of information that rearranges several things simultaneously, the political, the personal, the strategic, and the human all at once, in a room where they have spent years processing only the first and third. Commander Liang looks at him for a long moment. Something moves in the old man's face that is not surprise. You've known, Xiaojun says to him. Not a question. I suspected, Liang says carefully. You decorated 43 men with no ceremony and no citation. You have met privately with Lady Wen twice in the last week through routes that don't appear in your official schedule. And you have been, for lack of a more military term, a man with something eating him from the inside since the night that decree was signed. Pause. I suspected. I didn't know the shape of it. Now you know the shape. Now I know the shape. Commander Tan leans forward. He is young enough to ask things the others have decided not to. The prince is alive. The heir exists. What are you asking us? Xiaojun looks at him. I'm asking one question. If the rightful heir to this throne presented himself at the capital gates, what would you do? The room does not erupt. These are not men who erupt. What happens instead is quieter and more definitive. 11 of the 12 answer within 30 seconds. Not declarations, not speeches. The answers are brief and direct in the way of men who have known their answer for a long time and have been waiting for a room where it was safe to say it. Open the gate, says Liang. Stand aside, says Tan. Withdraw Eastern Garrison support from the current occupant, says Fei, who cannot help framing everything as procedure. The others follow, each in their own register, each arriving at the same place. 11 of 12 within 30 seconds. The 12th is Commander Pei Shuhan. Xiaojun has been watching him. Pei is Xin Bao's appointment. Xiaojun knew this when he included him, which was a calculated risk. He included him because excluding him would have created its own danger, and because he has been reading Pei for 6 months and believes, that his loyalty to Xin Bao is positional, not personal. That he serves the throne as occupied because it is occupied, not because of any particular investment in who is doing the occupying. Pei is quiet for long enough that it becomes significant. The room is aware of it. Xiaojun does not fill the silence. Then, I'd want to see the child, Pei says slowly. To know the line is real. Xiaojun holds his gaze. I've seen him. Pause. He has my jaw, Xiaojun says. Pei looks at him for a moment, reading him the same way Xiaojun has been reading Pei. Then slowly he nods. Then the line is real, he says. 12 of 12. He dismisses them in the same staggered pattern. Pairs and individuals, different exits within a 10-minute window. Commander Liang is the last to leave. He pauses at the door. The prince, he says. He's well? Xiaojun stops. Considers what word is accurate. He's formidable, he says. Liang almost smiles. Good, he says. We could use that. He leaves. Xiaojun stands alone in the war room for a moment, with the pre-dawn quiet and the lamp burning and the map of the capital on the table, and he allows himself to acknowledge what has just happened. What he has just set in motion, what cannot now be unset. 12 men. 12 answers. The army is not Xin Bao's army. It has not been, perhaps, for longer than tonight. He was the last thing holding it in that position. He extinguishes the lamp. He goes into the pre-dawn dark. The safe house that isn't the calligrapher's, the third contingency location, a storage room above a grain merchant's warehouse in the outer residential quarter, accessed through a roof entrance that requires knowing it exists, is where Kalen has been for 36 hours. Xiaojun finds it because he built the contingency network that Kalen is using years ago for reasons he told himself were purely strategic, and knows every location on it. He knocks in the pattern. A long pause. Then the roof access opens and Kalen looks down at him from above with the expression of a man who is not surprised but is noting something. You know this network, Kalen says. I built this network, Xiaojun says. Another pause. Why? Xiaojun looks up at him from the alley below. The pre-dawn light is beginning at the edges of the sky, pale and specific. Come down or let me up, he says. I have things to tell you and I'm not delivering them from an alley. Kalen considers this for a moment. Then he disappears from the opening and a rope ladder follows him down. The storage room is small, grain sacks along one wall, a bedroll in the corner where Shinrue is asleep, the document case open on the floor beside a lamp turned low. Kalen has, in 36 hours in this room, covered one wall with a rough planning diagram in chalk. Minister names, garrison positions, supply routes, connected by lines that map the structure of what he is building. He has been working. Xiaojun looks at the wall for a moment. The 12 commanders, he says. I spoke to all of them last night. Kalen turns from the wall. And? 12 of 12. Something moves in Kalen's face, brief and significant and then contained. He nods. Pei Shuhan? He asked to see the child. You told him. I told him enough. Xiaojun looks at the bedroll in the corner, at the small shape of Shinrui asleep in it. He was satisfied. Good. Kalen turns back to the wall. He makes a mark beside one of the garrison positions, updating, adjusting. The timeline. With the fold active and Shinbao escalating, we can't hold 3 weeks. What's the earliest the garrison can be positioned? 7 days for full positioning. 5 if I compress the eastern rotation and accept some visibility risk. 5, Kalen says. Accept the risk. The civilian network? 3 firm ministers, 2 probable, Ho Bingwen as a 6th if your read is right. Luo Qinhe's liaison confirmed last night, he's ready to move on signal. He pauses. It's enough. It's not everything I wanted but it's enough. Xiaojun looks at the wall, at the diagram, at the lines connecting the pieces of the thing Kalen has built in 6 days that Xiaojun spent 3 years believing was impossible. You came back with all of this already mapped, he says. I came back with the intention, Kalen says. The map built itself. In 6 days. I had 3 years to think about the architecture. Xiaojun is quiet for a moment. I need to say something. Don't? Kalen. I said don't. Not hard. The same finality as before, the closed door on his own timeline. Not tonight. Tonight we finish the plan. I'm not talking about the plan. I know what you're talking about. Kalen sets down the chalk. He turns. He looks at Xiaojun directly, not the contained, strategic look, not the assessed and filed look, but the actual look, the one underneath all the others, the one that has been there every time and costs something to show. I know. I am aware of everything you're not saying. I have been aware of it since the corridor. I am keeping it in a place where it can be survived until there is time to survive it properly. Pause. There will be time. After. After, Xiaojun says. After. They look at each other. The lamp burns low between them. The city outside is beginning to wake, the first sounds of the early vendors, the distant bell of the temple marking the pre-dawn hour. Then from the bedroll in the corner, without opening his eyes, too loud. Shinrui not asleep. Or no longer asleep. Registering the adult voices with the evaluative precision of a child who has learned to monitor tone even through apparent sleep. Kalen looks at his son. Something in his face unlocks. The specific, private unlocking that only happens in these moments, the expression that belongs to no strategy and no plan and no throne and is simply what it is. Sorry, he says quietly. Go back to sleep. Shinrui resettles. He is quiet. Then, without opening his eyes, is the big one here? Pause. Yes, Kalen says. A longer pause. Then Shinrui makes the sound of a child who has received satisfactory information and is returning to sleep. He pulls the blanket up. He is still. Xiaojun is looking at the bedroll. He is very still himself. A different quality of still, the stillness of a man who has just had something happen to him that he does not have a category for and is standing in the gap between the experience and the understanding of it. Kalen watches him. Come inside, Kalen says quietly. Not the corridor version, not the assessment, not the managed opening. The actual version. We have 5 days and the plan needs 2 more hours and then you should sleep because you haven't slept and I need you functional. Xiaojun looks at him. Kalen, he says. Not an argument. Not a question. Just the name with everything in it that has been in it since the corridor, since the archive, since the calculation he did at his desk at the second watch. All of it compressed into 2 syllables and held there, because this is not the time and he knows it is not the time and he is saying the name anyway because sometimes that is all there is. I know, Kalen says. He turns back to the wall. He picks up the chalk. 2 more hours, he says. Then we sleep. Xiaojun looks at the planning diagram. He looks at Shinrui asleep in the corner, who asked if the big one was here and received the answer and was satisfied by it and went back to sleep with the uncomplicated acceptance of someone who has decided, in the way children decide things, completely without reservation, without requiring reasons, that the big one belongs in the room. He moves to the wall beside Kalen. He picks up a second piece of chalk from the floor. The northern gate timing needs to change, he says. If we compress to 5 days, the rotation gap moves 2 hours earlier. Show me, Kalen says. Xiaojun marks the wall. They work until the dawn comes in through the high window, 2 men and a chalk diagram in 5 days, and the small, even breathing of a child in the corner who has already decided the outcome to his own satisfaction and is sleeping accordingly. Chapter 8. The 5th day arrives the way the 5th day always arrives. Not dramatically, not with the weight it deserves, but as an ordinary morning that happens to be the last ordinary morning for some time. The sun comes up over the capital and the vendors open their stalls and the temple bells mark the hours and the city does what cities do, which is continue, indifferent to the fact that by this time tomorrow it will be a different city with a different name on the throne. Kalen spends the morning in final confirmation, the minister network, Luo Tianhe's liaison, the supply route contacts who will ensure the southern gates remain accessible and unsabotaged when the movement begins at dawn. Everything checks. Everything is where it should be. The architecture he built in 6 days and refined over 5 more holds when he tests each joint, each connection, each dependency in sequence. It is, he thinks, the most complete thing he has ever built. It is also the thing that will either work or will not, and there is nothing more to do to it now. He sends the final signal to Xiao Zhen at midday. 3 words through the calligrapher, dawn. Eastern Gate. The response comes back in 20 minutes. 1 word, ready. Kalen folds both papers. He burns them in the lamp. He watches the ash. Shinrue knows something is happening. He has known for 2 days in the way children know things, not through information but through atmosphere, through the quality of adult attention around him, through the particular way Kalen has been looking at him when he thinks Shinrue isn't watching. He has not asked. He is, for a 3-year-old, remarkably patient with the things adults aren't ready to explain yet. He waits. He watches. He stores. In the afternoon he asks Kalen to tell him a story. This is not unusual. Shinrue has required a story every afternoon of his life with the consistency of a contractual obligation. What is unusual is which story he asks for. The prince one, he says. The one who went away and came back. Kalen looks at him. Shinrue looks back with his father's eyes and his other father's complete, patient directness. You know that one, Kalen says. You always stop before the end, Shinrue says. Tell the end today. Kalen is quiet for a moment. He is sitting on the floor of the storage room with his back against the grain sacks and his son in his lap and 5 days of planning behind him and 1 night ahead of him, and his son is asking for the end of a story Kalen has been telling in pieces since Shinrue was old enough to listen. The story that is not quite a story and has never quite had an end because the end was not yet available. The prince came back, Kalen says. He came back to the city he'd been taken from and he found the people who had been waiting, the ones who kept the door, the ones who remembered the right name on the right seat. And the next morning he went and he sat in the seat that was always his. And then he stayed, Kalen says. That was the whole of it. He came back and he sat down and he stayed. Shinrue is quiet for a moment, processing this with the seriousness he brings to all narrative conclusions. Is the big one in the story? He's in the story. What does he do? He opens the gate, Kalen says. So the prince can come in. Shinrue nods. This satisfies him. He leans back against Kalen's chest and is quiet, and Kalen puts both arms around him and they sit in the last afternoon of the last ordinary day and the city hums outside the window and Kalen holds his son and does not think about tomorrow and thinks about nothing else. Lady Wen arrives at the 6th hour to take Shinrue for the night. They have agreed on this, Kalen and Xiao Zhen 2 nights ago over the chalk wall, without needing to discuss it extensively. Tomorrow will not be a safe environment for a 3-year-old and Lady Wen's apothecary, which the obsidian fold has flagged but not yet moved on, offers the specific protection of a building that is still in the category of being watched rather than being entered. Shin Bao will not move on Lady Wen until he has a confirmed sighting, and he does not yet have a confirmed sighting. By tomorrow that will not matter. Shinrue accepts the transition with the adaptability he has always had, which still breaks something small in Kalen every time he sees it. He takes Lady Wen's hand. He looks back at Kalen at the door. You'll be there when I wake up? He asks. Yes, Kalen says. Promise? Yes. Shinrue holds his gaze for a moment, checking it the way he checks everything, with the complete and undefended attention of a child who has learned that the quality of an answer matters more than its content. He finds what he needs in Kalen's face. He turns and goes with Lady Wen. Kalen stands in the doorway until the sound of their footsteps is gone. Then he goes inside. He closes the door. He stands in the storage room alone for the first time in 11 days and the quiet is louder than expected. More present than expected. He goes to the planning wall. He looks at the diagram, The lines connecting the pieces of the thing he has built, the garrison markers and the minister names and the gate timing and the supply routes. He has looked at it every day. Tonight it looks different. Not incomplete. It is complete. He has checked every joint, every connection holds. It looks like what it is, a finished thing. A thing about to be used and then superseded by whatever comes after it. He looks at it for a long time. Xiaojun arrives at the second watch. Not early, not late. The second watch, when the Obsidian Fold's eastern unit completes its rotation and the 12-minute gap opens. He comes through the roof entrance, which he does with the ease of a man who built the route, and drops into the storage room and finds Kalen at the planning wall with the lamp burning and the city quiet outside. He takes in the room. The cleared bedroll where Shinrue is not. The document case packed and closed by the door. The chalk wall fully realized, every line in place. He's with Lady One, he says. Yes. Xiaojun nods. He sets down the pack he's carrying, not his military pack, a smaller one, civilian. He moves to the wall. He looks at the diagram. The northern gate timing, he says. Liang confirmed the adjusted rotation? 2 hours before dawn. He'll have the secondary unit in position by the first bell. Tan's battalion is staged at the eastern garrison perimeter? Since this afternoon. Pei. Holding the inner barracks. He won't move until Liang signals. Xiaojun nods. He is checking the same joints Kalen has been checking all day, running the same sequence. Not because he doubts it, but because this is what you do the night before, because checking is the only thing left to do and doing it is better than not doing it. He finishes. He steps back from the wall. They stand in the storage room with the lamp between them and everything prepared and nothing left to prepare, and the specific quality of silence that belongs to the night before. The silence of two people who have been moving toward something for 11 days and have arrived at the last fixed point before it begins and are standing on it together. Sit down, Kalen says. You've been standing since this morning. Xiaojun sits, on the floor back against the grain sacks, the same position Kalen held this afternoon with Shinrue. Kalen sits beside him. Not across, beside. Closer than the table at the apothecary, closer than the chalk wall. The lamp on the floor between them throws the light up at an angle that makes the room feel smaller and warmer than it is. Xiaojun picks up the piece of chalk from the floor beside him. He turns it in his hand. He is not looking at the wall. When this is done, he says. When this is done, Kalen says. There are things I need to. I know. I haven't said them. I know what they are. Xiaojun looks at him. You can't know all of them. Kalen meets his eyes. Tell me when I don't know. Pause. Xiaojun looks at the lamp. The chalk turns in his hand. Once, twice, the motion of a man organizing something that resists organization. The night we were together, he says. Before the decree. I knew. You told me. At the apothecary. I told you I knew what it would mean. He stops. Starts again more precisely. I didn't tell you that I knew before that night. That I had known for longer than that night. That the night was not. It was not an accident of circumstance or proximity or anything that could be reduced to situation. He pauses. I knew. I chose. The decree was 6 weeks later, and I have spent 3 years treating them as separate events because treating them as connected was not survivable. The room is very quiet. They were connected, Xiaojun says. I let you carry the consequences of a choice I made completely, and I signed the decree and I wrote the death report, and the reason it was never sufficient. The reason the mechanism was never sufficient was that you cannot decide a thing is finished that you chose with full knowledge and full intention. He stops. That is the one you didn't know. Kalen looks at him for a long time. Outside the city is quiet. The second watch quiet, the deep quiet, the particular silence of a city that has no idea what morning will bring. The lamp burns between them, steady and low. I knew too, Kalen says. Xiaojun goes still. That it wasn't circumstance, Kalen says. I knew. I chose also. Pause. I have been very careful for 3 years, not to let that knowledge be the reason for anything. Not to let it be leverage against myself. Against my own judgment. He looks at the lamp. The throne is the reason I came back. Shinrue is the reason I survived long enough to come back. Those are the reasons. They don't change. I know they don't change. And underneath them, Kalen says, is the other thing. Which is also true and has also been true and is. He stops. He looks at Xiaojun directly, the actual look, the one underneath all the others. I'm not ready to be wise about it tonight. I've been wise about it for 3 years. I'm tired of being wise about it. Xiaojun looks back at him. The lamp throws light between them and the city is quiet and there is no plan left to check, no wall left to mark, no timeline left to manage. There is only the room and the night and 11 days of parallel architecture coming to rest against the same wall at the same moment. Xiaojun says his name. Just his name. The same as in the storage room 2 nights ago, just the name with everything in it. Kalen closes the distance. What happens in the storage room above the grain merchant's warehouse, in the last hours of the last night before the gates open, is not gentle. 3 years of grief and fury and wanting and pride and the particular exhaustion of a person who has been strong for so long that the word has lost meaning, all of it comes down to bone, stripped of everything Kalen has used to manage it, everything Xiaojun has used to contain it, all the architecture and the cataloging and the performing of being sufficient unto oneself. Xiaojun does not become soft. He is not built for soft, and Kalen has never wanted soft from him, has always, with the honesty he reserves for the interior of his own skull, wanted exactly what Xiaojun is. The specific quality of his attention, the particular way he is present when he allows himself to be present, which is different from every other presence Kalen has ever been inside of. He confesses first. Everything, the choosing, the knowing, the 3 years of the death report and the mechanism that was never sufficient. He says it clearly and without defense and does not ask for anything in the saying of it. He is not asking for absolution. He is accounting. Kalen receives the accounting without softening it. And then he closes the remaining distance and the room is very small and the lamp burns and 3 years of the thing that was never going to be reclassified stops being managed. Kalen is in control of every term. This is not a negotiation. Xiaojun understands the terms without being given them and meets them without diminishment. Still himself, still the specific quality of presence that Kalen chose with full knowledge and full intention, but present in a way he has never allowed himself in a room with another person. The walls down. Not softness. Presence. It is explicit and it is complete and it is theirs. Afterward the lamp has burned lower and the window shows the deep pre-dawn dark and they are lying on the bedroll in the corner and Kalen is looking at the ceiling and Xiaojun is looking at the ceiling and the planning wall is on the opposite side of the room with all its lines and connections, the finished thing waiting to be used. Neither of them speaks for a long time. Then there is a sound at the roof access, the specific pattern of Lady Wen's knock, adapted for the new location, and then the sound of small feet descending and Shinrue's voice. The physician lady said I could come back now. Kalen closes his eyes briefly. Then he says, come here. Shinrue drops from the last rung of the rope ladder with the confidence of a child who has decided heights are not interesting enough to be frightening, and crosses the room, and climbs onto the bedroll with the absolute certainty of someone who has never once been turned away from this space. He finds the arrangement, 2 adults, the lamp, the pre-dawn dark, and processes it with his customary evaluative pause. Then he inserts himself between them with the efficiency of a child claiming the obvious position and pulls the blanket up to his chin. Xiaojun goes very still. Shinrue looks at the ceiling. He considers it. The stars are better outside, he says to no one in particular. We're inside, Kalen says. I know. Pause. Baba. Yes. Tomorrow is the day, isn't it? Not a question. Kalen looks at his son, at the profile of his face in the low lamplight, the jaw that is not Kalen's jaw, the brow, the particular set of the chin slightly upward. Yes, he says. Shinrue nods. He accepts this the way he accepts everything Kalen tells him, completely without requiring the details, trusting the shape of the answer. He turns his head and looks at Xiaojun with the direct, undefended attention he has used since the apothecary. You're going to open the gate, he says. Xiaojun looks at him. Something in his face is doing something he has not prepared for, something he does not have architecture for, has never needed architecture for, that is arriving without category or precedent. Yes, he says. His voice is even. It cost him something to make it even. Shinrue nods. Satisfied. He turns back to the ceiling. Good, he says. I want to see the palace. You'll see it, Kalen says. Does it have a garden? Several. Shinrue considers this with the gravity it deserves. I want the one with the fish, he says. You can have the one with the fish. Shinrue makes the sound of a child who has received satisfactory information and is returning to sleep. His breathing slows. His hand finds Kalen's sleeve in the dark, fists in it, the gesture of every night, the checking, the confirming, and then goes still. Kalen looks at the ceiling. He does not think about tomorrow. He thinks about the fish garden, and about the particular weight of his son's hand in his sleeve, and about the man lying on the other side of his son who is also looking at the ceiling with the expression of someone learning a new category for an experience they did not know they were going to have. Don't make a face, Kalen says. I'm not making a face. You're thinking loudly. Pause. Then, very quietly, Not soft but something adjacent to it, something that is still completely Xiaozhen and has simply stopped performing the distance. I'm allowed. Kalen almost smiles. Tonight, he allows. They lie in the dark with Shinrue between them and the plan on the wall and the dawn coming and the city outside still asleep and not yet knowing what it will wake to. The gates open at first light, Kalen says. His voice is even. The weight of tomorrow is back, pressing down through the quiet, not crushing, just present, the weight of a thing that is real and near. I'll be at the eastern garrison before the first bell, Xiaozhen says. Don't be late. I have never been late. First time for everything. Not for this. Kalen is quiet. He listens to his son breathe. He listens to the city outside, the deep pre-dawn quiet that will not last. Xiaozhen, he says. Yes. Come back. Pause. Not a plea, a term. The same quality as all his terms. Clear, direct, non-negotiable. When it's done. Come back. Xiaozhen is quiet for a moment. Yes, he says. The lamp burns. The dark holds. The morning waits. Chapter 9. Dawn arrives without ceremony. The first bell sounds from the temple district at the precise moment Kalen steps out of the grain merchant's building into the pre-dawn street. Shinrue on his back, document case in hand, Lady Wen one step behind him. The bell rolls out across the rooftops and the city begins its first sounds of waking. A cart on stone somewhere distant, a dog, the creak of a shutter opening 2 streets over. Ordinary sounds. The city does not know yet. The city will know soon. He walks toward the eastern gate. He does not wear a hood. The eastern gate is the garrison gate. Military access, not civilian, the heavy iron doors that open onto Armorer's Row and the military compound beyond. It is not the gate through which emperors process. It is not ceremonial. It is functional and solid, and it is the gate Xiaozhen's army controls completely, which is the only quality that matters this morning. Kalen hears it before he sees it. The sound of the mechanism, the deep iron groan of the bar being lifted from the inside, the particular resonance of a gate this size beginning to move. He has been listening for it since he left the building. He has been, without acknowledging it, holding something braced against the possibility that it would not come. It comes. The eastern gate opens. Commander Liang is on the other side in full uniform with 16 soldiers at his back in formation. Not a combat formation, a formal one. An honor guard. Liang looks at Kalen across the threshold with the expression of a man who is doing something he has been waiting to do for a long time and is finding the reality of it larger than the anticipation. He bows. A full bow, the formal bow, the one that goes to the throne and its blood. The 16 soldiers follow. Kalen stands in the street with his son on his back and the dawn light coming up behind him, and he looks at 16 soldiers bowing in the gate of the capital he was exiled from 3 years ago, and he breathes in once, fully, and breathes out. Rise, he says. There's work to do. The next 40 minutes are the minutes the plan was built for. Tan's battalion moves from the eastern garrison perimeter to the inner palace wall at the second bell, not at a run, not with drawn weapons, but with the deliberate, visible purpose of soldiers who are exactly where they are supposed to be and know it. The soldiers of Xin Bao's personal guard at the inner wall see Tan's battalion and see, behind them, the eastern garrison unit and, behind that, the secondary unit Liang positioned overnight, and they perform, collectively, the calculation that Kalen designed this sequence to produce. They are outnumbered, they are outpositioned, and the army moving toward them is the Imperial Army wearing Imperial Army uniforms, which means that the question of who is in rebellion and who is restoring order is a question of whose account is written first. 3 of Xin Bao's personal guards step aside before the first officer speaks. 4 more follow within the minute. The remaining 6 hold their positions for 90 seconds and then, when the officer speaks, lower their weapons. No blood. Kalen is precise about this, has been precise about it in every conversation with every commander. No blood in the transition. Minimum force. The point is the restoration of order, not the demonstration of power. Xiaozhen transmitted this instruction to all 12 commanders with the flat authority of a man who expects it to be followed and whose expectations are correct. The inner wall opens at the third bell. Pei Shuhan holds the inner barracks as agreed. When the movement began at dawn, he sealed the barracks gates and posted his battalion at every internal access point, not to prevent Kalen's forces from moving through, but to prevent Xin Bao's remaining loyalists from using the barracks as an assembly point. It is a containment action, precise and bloodless, exactly what was asked of him. He is standing at the barracks gate when Kalen's procession passes. He looks at Kalen. He looks at the child on Kalen's back, awake now, watching everything with the wide, alert attention of a child experiencing something he has been told about in stories and is now calibrating against the reality. Pei bows. Not as deep as Liang, a commander's bow, respectful and exact. Kalen nods to him. The inner barracks remain sealed until I send word. Yes, Your Highness. The title lands in the morning air with the weight of 3 years of absence. Kalen does not react to it visibly. He files it in the place where it belongs, not comfort, not satisfaction, just information. The correct title in the correct mouth, which means the architecture is holding. He keeps walking. Xiao Zhen is at the throne room doors. Not inside, outside, standing to the left of the doors with 4 of his senior commanders behind him, in the specific position of a man who has delivered something to a threshold and is waiting to see what happens at it. He looks at Kalen when he arrives. His face does nothing in the command way, complete, controlled, the full presentation. But his eyes do something that is only visible if you know where to look. Kalen stops in front of him. The obsidian fold? He asks. Director is in custody. 4 senior field officers detained. The rest have stood down. Pause. Peacefully. Shin Bao. Inside. He was informed of the movement at the second bell. He has not attempted to leave. Xiao Zhen looks at him steadily. He's waiting for you. Kalen nods. He looks at the throne room doors, the doors he has not been through in 3 years, the doors that lead to the room where his brother has been sitting in the seat he took by force and held by fear and will surrender this morning because the architecture Kalen built did not leave him any other option. He looks at Xiao Zhen. Take Shinrui, he says. Xiao Zhen goes still. He can't be in the room, Kalen says. And I need him with someone I trust. He meets Xiao Zhen's eyes. That's you. The words settle. Xiao Zhen looks at Kalen, and then at Shinrui, who has been following this exchange from his position on Kalen's back with the evaluative attention he brings to everything, his chin at its characteristic upward angle. Shinrui looks at Xiao Zhen. Are you going to hold me? He asks, with the directness of someone who wants the terms clarified. Yes, Xiao Zhen says. His voice is even. It costs him something. Shinrui considers this. Okay, he says. Kalen unstraps him. He hands his son to Xiao Zhen. The specific weight and warmth of him, the small hands that find purchase immediately, one fisted in the collar of Xiao Zhen's field coat with the same claiming gesture he uses on Kalen's sleeve. Xiao Zhen takes him with the careful, deliberate arms of a man handling something he understands to be the most important thing he has ever held. Kalen looks at his son once. I'll be back. Shinrui nods. He has already turned his attention to the soldiers arrayed in the courtyard with the interested assessment of a child cataloging a new and complex environment. Kalen faces the throne room doors. This part is mine, he says. Not to Xiao Zhen specifically, to all of them, the commanders, the soldiers, the morning, the city that is waking up outside these walls to a different name on the throne than it went to sleep with. He opens the doors himself. He goes in alone. The throne room is exactly as he remembers. This surprises him. He expected Shin Bao to have changed it, to have marked the space with his own imprint the way usurpers do, replacing the previous dynasty's aesthetic with their own as proof of occupancy. But the room is unchanged. The high coffered ceiling, the long approach to the raised dais, the throne itself in dark lacquered wood with the dynasty's crest above it, the morning light coming through the high eastern windows in long oblique lines that fall across the floor the way they always have. Shin Bao sits on the throne. He is dressed formally, not in the informal robes of a man surprised by dawn events but in full imperial dress, the ceremonial robes with the dynasty crest, the formal headdress. He dressed for this. He knew Kalen was coming and he dressed for it, which is either dignity or performance and is probably both. He looks at Kalen across the long room. Kalen walks the approach at a steady pace. Not hurried. Not ceremonial. The walk of a man who has somewhere specific to be and is going to it. He stops at the base of the dais. He looks up at his brother. Shin Bao looks down at him. 3 years has done to him what power without legitimacy always does. Refined the face into something harder and more guarded, the eyes carrying the particular calculation of a man who has spent 3 years managing a thing he knows is not securely his. He is 31 years old and he looks 50 and he knows it. Brother, he says. The word is neutral. Careful. You look tired, Kalen says. Shin Bao's jaw tightens. You look, he stops. Recalibrates. You look like you've been sleeping in grain storage. I have been. Kalen looks at the throne. Looks at his brother on it. I'm going to tell you what happens now. You're going to listen. When I'm finished, if you have something accurate to say, you may say it. Otherwise we proceed. Shin Bao says nothing. He is listening. He has always, whatever else he is, been precise about gathering information before responding. It is the quality Kalen respected most in him. Once, the army has withdrawn its support from your administration as of this morning, Kalen says. 12 senior commanders, full garrison compliance, no casualties. The Obsidian Fold's command structure is in custody. The Eastern, Northern, and Western Gate commands have transferred to General Xiao Zhen's authority. The Minister Network, 6 confirmed, 2 additional probable, has been informed of the transition and is prepared to process the administrative transfer through official channels. He pauses. Gives his brother a moment to complete the calculation. The exile decree is void, Kalen continues. Not contested void. It was obtained under duress and executed against an unconscious person who could not respond to its terms. There is documented evidence of the coercion applied to General Xiao Zhen. This evidence exists in multiple copies in multiple locations and will be submitted to the court record regardless of this morning's outcome. You've been thorough, Shinbao says. His voice is even. He is performing even, which means he is not. I had time. 3 years of it, apparently. 3 years and 11 days. Kalen looks at him. You sent me into the Wuling Mountains in winter. Alone. You wrote the decree while I was unconscious and you sent me into those mountains and you filed a death report and you sat here. He gestures. A small gesture taking in the throne, the room, the 3 years of it. You sat here and you maintained and you managed and you spent 3 years being afraid of a dead man. Pause. I was never dead. Shinbao is very still. I know, he says quietly. Something shifts in his face. Not remorse, he is not built for remorse any more than Xiao Zhen is built for soft, but something that is its structural neighbor. The acknowledgement of a man who made a choice with full knowledge and has been living in its consequences. I knew. The reports were, I knew the mountains were a death sentence and I knew it wasn't certain and he stops. I hoped. I know you hoped, Kalen says. I'm not interested in the hope. I'm interested in what comes next. You want me to step down. I want you to step down without making it a removal, Kalen says. There is a difference and I am offering it to you deliberately. A removal creates a narrative, the usurper overthrown, the military coup, the instability. It unsettles the trade networks, the border relationships, the administrative continuity. I'm not interested in instability. I am interested in governance. He meets his brother's eyes. You step down. The records are corrected. The exile decree voided, the succession restored, the administrative record amended. You are not executed. You are not publicly humiliated. You are removed to the Eastern Estate under house supervision and you live there, quietly, for as long as you conduct yourself in a manner that suggests you understand the terms. A long silence. You're being generous, Shinbao says. He makes it sound like an accusation. I'm being precise, Kalen says. Generous would be letting you keep the crest. I'm not doing that. Shinbao looks at him, really looks at him the way he has not yet, with the quality of attention that goes past the surface and finds what's underneath it. He looks at the brother he sent into the mountains and who came back out of them with an army and a plan and 11 days of architecture and is standing at the base of his dais at dawn telling him the terms of his own surrender. You're different, Shinbao says. Yes, Kalen says. The mountains. Among other things. Shinbao is quiet. He looks at the throne room, the ceiling, the windows, the long approach. He looks at the dynasty crest above the throne, which is also Kalen's crest, which was always Kalen's crest. He opens his mouth to say something. Kalen can see it forming, the last move, the thing he has been holding in reserve. He has always had a last move. Even now, even here he has built one. You were never suited for this, Shinbao says. You were always too soft, too trusting. You carry a bastard child and call it lineage. You make terms with the man who signed your exile and call it strategy. You are. I carried him, Kalen says. His voice does not rise. It does not harden. It simply lands. I carried him through the Wuling Mountains in winter. Alone. I carried him through the fever and the altitude and the 4 days when I did not know if either of us would survive them. I carried him through 3 years of building something out of nothing in a city that thought I was dead. He looks at his brother. What have you carried, Shinbao? Specifically. Name one thing you have carried. The throne room is completely silent. Shinbao says nothing. Stand up, Kalen says. A long moment. The longest moment of the morning. The morning light moves in the high windows, the oblique lines shifting across the floor, and the city outside is fully awake now. Kalen can hear it, the ordinary sounds of the ordinary day that is also the first day of something different. Carts on stone. The temple bell. Vendors opening their stalls. Shen Bao stands. He descends the dais steps. 3 steps, the same 3 steps Kalen watched 100 times as a child, the steps he knows in his own body, the precise height and depth of each one. He descends them and he walks past Kalen toward the throne room doors and he does not look back. His footsteps cross the long room. The doors open from outside, Liang soldiers, positioned and waiting. The doors close behind him. Kalen stands alone in the throne room. He looks at the throne. It is smaller than he remembered. This is the first thing he thinks. Not profound, not the thought of a man in a historic moment, just the simple true observation of someone who built a thing in his mind over 3 years and is now measuring it against the reality. It is smaller. The lacquer is slightly faded on the right armrest. There is a crack in the 3rd step that wasn't there before. He climbs the dais. He does not sit. He stands in front of the throne and looks at it from this angle, the angle of the person who belongs here, looking out at the long room and the high windows and the morning light coming in. He hears the doors open behind him. Well? Xiaojun says. Kalen does not turn immediately. He looks at the room, the length of it, the light, the empty space where 3 years of wrong occupancy is already beginning to clear like weather. It's smaller than I remembered, he says. He hears Xiaojun's footfall, 1 set and then lighter, quicker, 2 sets. He turns. Xiaojun is standing at the far end of the room with Shenrue in the crook of his left arm, not perched, not handled, but held with the ease of a man whose body has made a silent and irrevocable decision about this weight and what it means. Shenrue is looking at the throne room with his mouth slightly open, which is the expression he makes when something exceeds his existing vocabulary for large. It's very big, Shenrue says to the room in general. It is, Kalen says. Bigger than the story. Stories are imprecise. Shenrue looks at him across the length of the throne room. Then he looks at the throne. His chin goes up, the characteristic angle, the evaluating tilt. Can I touch it? He asks. When we come back, Kalen says. Properly. There are things that happen first. Shenrue accepts this with the patience he reserves for outcomes that are confirmed but not yet available. He turns his attention to Xiaojun's collar, which he has been holding, and examines it with the focused interest of a child who has moved on to the next thing. Kalen looks at Xiaojun across the room. Xiaojun looks back. His face is doing nothing, the full presentation, the armor, but underneath it, visible only from this distance and this angle and with this particular knowledge of where to look. Something that has unclenched. Something that has been clenching since a courtyard 3 years ago when he was not there, when the gates closed, when the death report was a future document he hadn't written yet. Something that has, this morning, let go. Come here, Kalen says. Xiaojun walks the length of the throne room. He walks it with the same economy of motion he has always had, unhurried, the ground solid under each step, and he comes to stand at the base of the dais and looks up at Kalen the way Kalen stood and looked up at his brother 20 minutes ago. Except entirely differently. The administrative transfer, Xiaojun says. The court session needs to be convened within 3 days for the succession documents. Fei is already drafting the procedural framework. I know. The border commander Luo Tianhe, he'll need a formal audience within the week. His cooperation was significant. I know. The Obsidian Fold detainees need to be processed through a legal framework before. Xiaojun, Kalen says. He stops. The throne room will still be here in an hour, Kalen says. The administrative transfer will still need to happen in an hour. All of it will still need to happen. He looks at him. Come up here. Xiaojun looks at the dais steps. He looks at Kalen. He climbs the 3 steps, the faded lacquer, the cracked 3rd step, and stands beside him in front of the throne. They stand together and look out at the long room and the morning light and the empty space that is, this morning for the first time in 3 years, waiting for the right person to fill it. Shenrue from the crook of Xiaojun's arm. Is this the end of the story? Kalen looks at his son. No, he says. This is where it starts. Chapter 10. 3 months is not enough time to fix everything. Kalen knows this the way he knows all practical things. Not from expectation but from contact with the reality of it. The restoration is not a clean line, a before and after, a door that opens onto a different world. It is a process, slow, contested in places, requiring the same quality of attention as the 11 days that preceded it but sustained across months instead of days, without the compression of urgency to make it feel like progress. There are holdout ministers, 3 who backed Shen Bao past the point of deniability and are now navigating the distance between their past position and their hoped-for future one with the careful footwork of men who understand they are being watched. Kalen watches them. He does not move against them preemptively. He waits for the action that clarifies the situation and responds to that, which is slower than moving preemptively and more durable. There are border disputes, 2 of them in the northeastern territories, inherited from Xin Bao's administration, which managed them by ignoring them until they calcified into something that will require actual negotiation and a surveying expedition and the patience of 2 different regional governors who have been hostile to each other for 11 years. Kalen reads the files. He appoints a delegation. He approves the surveying budget over the objection of 3 treasury ministers who have opinions about surveying budgets that Kalen finds interesting and unpersuasive. There are trade agreements to renegotiate, 4 of them, structured by Xin Bao's administration in ways that favored short-term revenue over long-term relationship, which is the administrative equivalent of borrowing from a neighbor you plan to keep needing. Kalen works through them methodically with the Minister of Commerce and a trade specialist lady when recommended, one at a time. There is an enormous amount of correspondence. He handles all of it. He is, it turns out, good at it, better than the court expected, better perhaps than he expected, though he does not say this aloud because it would require acknowledging the expectation. He has always been precise and patient and interested in the actual texture of problems, which is most of what governance is. Precise, patient attention to the actual texture of problems applied consistently, without the luxury of waiting until you feel like it. He does not always feel like it. He does it anyway. Xiao Jun remains supreme commander. This is not a given. There are ministers who raise the question, carefully and indirectly, of whether the general's position should be reviewed given his signature on the exile decree. Kalen addressed this question once, in a full court session, with the flat precision that has become his register for things he has decided and is informing the court of rather than consulting it on. The exile decree was obtained under documented duress, he said. General Xiao Zhen acted under direct threat to 43 soldiers under his command. The full record of the coercion applied to him has been entered into the court archive. Any further questions about the general's position are questions about the court's capacity to read a document, which I am happy to address through the appropriate educational channels. No further questions were raised. Xiao Zhen, informed of this exchange by Commander Liang who was present for it, says nothing when Kalen tells him. He looks at the wall of the study for a moment. Then he says, the northeastern border delegation needs a security escort. I'm recommending Commander Tan. Approved, Kalen says. They return to the maps. His position to Kalen is not softened into something decorative. This is the part the court watches most carefully. The watchers always watch the relationship between the throne and the army first, because that relationship is the structural load-bearing wall of every administration. They look for signs of the general's influence expanding beyond its mandate, or contracting below its usefulness, or distorting into something personal that compromises the professional. What they observe is harder to categorize. Xiao Jin is still the most dangerous man in any room he enters. He runs the garrison with the same cold efficiency, conducts the strategy sessions with the same economy of motion, responds to administrative overreach from other departments with the same flat authority that does not raise its voice because it has never needed to. He is not soft. He has not become soft. The court, watching for softness as a sign of compromise, does not find it. What the court finds instead, and does not quite have language for, is a general who appears in the prince's study at the second watch with tea that was not requested and leaves when the maps are put away, and who is present for every session involving the northeastern border because Kalen asked him to be, and who has been seen once in the fish garden with a 3-year-old on his shoulders, standing very still in front of the largest pond while Shinrui explained the fish to him in exhaustive detail. Commander Liang, who has been watching Xiao Zhen for 14 years and understands his registers better than most, observes all of this and says nothing and finds privately that he has nothing critical to say. Shinrui gets the fish garden. This requires no negotiation. Kalen simply takes him there on the 3rd day after the succession documents are signed, when the palace has settled enough that moving through it does not require a security formation, and Shinrui sees the main pond with its population of ornamental fish in red and gold and white and goes completely silent. This is notable. Shinrui is not often completely silent. He crouches at the edge of the pond and looks for a long time. The fish move through the water with the particular indifference of creatures that have been ornamental for so long they have forgotten any other mode. Shinrui watches them with the focused attention he brings to everything new, cataloging, assessing, filing. Then, that one is in charge. He is pointing at a large red fish moving through the center of the pond with the unhurried authority of a creature that has never questioned its position. How do you know? Kalen asks. It doesn't look around, Shinrui says. The others look around. That one just goes. Kalen looks at the fish. He looks at his son. You're right, he says. Shinrue nods. He has accepted this as confirmed information and is already moving to the next fish, the next assessment, the next thing to know. The formal registration of Shinrue's name in the imperial birth records happens in the 4th week, in a brief court session that Kalen keeps as undramatic as possible, which is a relative term when the thing being registered is the existence of an heir whose parentage involves the supreme commander of the imperial army and a pregnancy that survived the Wuling Mountains. The record reads, Shinrue. Born to His Highness Prince Kalen of the Shin dynasty. Paternal secondary line, General Xiao Zhen, Supreme Commander. The court processes this with the contained energy of an institution that has opinions and has calculated that expressing them is not currently advantageous. Shinrue, told that his name is now in the official records of the Empire, considers this information for a moment. Does that mean I live here now? He asks. Yes, Kalen says. And the fish garden is mine? In the sense that you may use it. I want to name the red one. You may name the red one. Shinrue nods. He goes immediately to find Xiao Zhen, who he has determined is the appropriate person to inform about the naming of the fish, a determination he arrived at through his own criteria which have never been fully explained to Kalen. Xiao Zhen, located in the eastern corridor reviewing a dispatch, receives the information that the red fish is now named commander with the expression of a man absorbing a development he did not anticipate and is not certain how to file. Commander, he repeats. Because it doesn't look around, Shinrue says. It just goes. Xiao Zhen looks at the child for a moment. Something moves in his face. The thing without category, the thing that arrived in the storage room and has not left since. That's accurate, he says. Shinrue nods, satisfied, and goes back to the fish garden. The 43 soldiers are decorated in the 6th week. Not quietly, not without ceremony, publicly, in a full garrison assembly, with the citation read into the official record by Kalen himself. The citation names the coercion applied to their commander, names the threat made to their lives, names their service as the thing their commander was protecting when he made an impossible calculation under impossible conditions. Xiao Zhen stands in the garrison courtyard and watches his soldiers be decorated, and his face does nothing. His face has not done anything in a public setting since the throne room, and it will not do anything in this one. He is a general, and generals do not do things with their faces in public settings. Afterward, when the assembly has dispersed, Kalen finds him in the eastern corridor, the same corridor where Shinrue told him about the fish. Xiao Zhen is standing with a dispatch in his hand that he is not reading. Kalen stops beside him. He does not say anything. He stands there, shoulder to shoulder with Xiao Zhen in the corridor, and they are both quiet for a moment that is long enough to be its own kind of speech. The northeastern delegation departs tomorrow, Xiao Zhen says finally. I know. Tan is prepared. I know. Pause. Thank you, Xiao Zhen says. He says it the way he says everything he means, directly, without preamble, without softening it into something easier to receive. For the citation. For the record. It's accurate, Kalen says. I'm interested in accurate records. I know you are. They stand in the corridor. Outside, the garrison courtyard is clearing, soldiers dispersing, the ordinary afternoon resuming. The dispatch in Xiao Zhen's hand is from the western border and requires a response by evening and will get one. Go, Kalen says. You have correspondence. So do you. More than you. Considerably more, Xiao Zhen agrees, which is the closest thing to sympathy he offers on the subject of Kalen's administrative load and which Kalen accepts as the gesture it is. He goes back to the study. He works until the second watch. The tea arrives without being requested, as it has every night for 3 months. He does not comment on this. Neither does Xiao Zhen. Some things are established by repetition rather than conversation and are not less real for it. The courtyard at dawn is Xiao Zhen's time. He has always drilled alone in the morning. This is not new, this is not a habit the capital produced, it is older than his command and probably older than his commission. The eastern courtyard is where he goes when the day has not yet required anything of him, where the form exists for its own sake rather than for demonstration or instruction, where the movement is just movement and the early light is just light and the sound is just the sound of a body doing what it was trained to do. He is not aware this morning that he is being watched. He has been doing this for 63 days in the palace. He was watched on day 1 by 3 junior officers who were curious, on day 4 by a kitchen staff member who happened to be crossing the courtyard, on day 11 by Commander Liang who stopped briefly and then continued about his business. After that the courtyard has been, in the early hour, essentially his. He works through the form. The light comes up over the eastern wall in the way it does this time of year, at an angle, through the gap between the armory and the garrison wall, A long specific line of early gold that crosses the courtyard at approximately the same point in the form each morning. He has noticed this. He has not mentioned it. On the upper corridor, Kalen stands at the window. He has not planned to be here. He was crossing the corridor from the study to the private rooms. He worked late, the northeastern border correspondence took longer than it should have, and the window caught him. The angle. The courtyard below. The figure in the early light. He watches. He watched from this distance once before, from a tea house window across a different courtyard 3 months and a lifetime ago. Surveillance then, assessment, the careful documentation of a variable. He was very clear with himself about what it was and what it wasn't. He is less clear with himself now. He does not try to be. He has earned the right, he thinks, to be less clear about some things. Xiaojun moves through the form with the economy and precision that is simply what he is. Nothing performed for any audience, nothing adjusted for observation. He is exactly what he is when no one is watching, which Kalen has always thought is the more significant fact about a person than what they are when they know they're seen. He finishes the form. He stands still for a moment in the morning light. Then he looks up. He finds the window immediately, does not search for it, does not scan. Finds it. Because of course he does. He has always known where to look with Kalen. That has always been the nature of it, running in both directions. They look at each other across the courtyard. Xiaojun holds the eye contact for 3 seconds. Exactly 3 seconds. Not a performance, not a calculation, just the duration that feels accurate to the moment. Then he drops his gaze and picks up his water flask and does the ordinary thing of a man who has finished his morning work and is returning to the day. He does not look back up. He doesn't need to. Kalen stays at the window for a moment after Xiaojun has gone. The courtyard is empty now, the early light moving across the stones, the morning fully arrived and the day already beginning to require things of him. The correspondence, the minister meeting at the 3rd hour, the trade agreement review, the ongoing enormous fact of governance. He thinks about the fish garden. About Shen Rui explaining commander to Xiaojun in the corridor with the complete seriousness of someone delivering important information. About the tea at the second watch, which has never once been late. About 3 seconds of eye contact across a courtyard at dawn, which is not a small thing and does not need to be a large one. About the storage room and what was said in it. About come back and yes and the way that yes was kept. He straightens. He turns from the window. He has correspondence waiting and a minister meeting at the 3rd hour and the ongoing enormous fact of governance to attend to. He attends to it. 3 months is not enough time to fix everything. It is, Kalen thinks, enough time to know the shape of the fixing, to understand which problems are structural and which are superficial, which disputes will resolve with patience and which require intervention, which relationships will build themselves over time and which need tending. It is enough time to know that the work is real and that he is suited to it and that suitability does not make it easy, only possible. It is enough time to know that Shen Rui has memorized every fish in the pond and has opinions about each one and will share them with anyone who stands still long enough. It is enough time to know that Xiaojun does not become soft but becomes present, which is different and more, and that the presence is consistent in the way of things that have been decided rather than things that are being managed. It is enough time to know that the power gap does not close. Xiaojun is still the most dangerous man in any room, still the general, still the person whose authority in his domain is complete and unarguable and belongs entirely to him. The gap transforms. He is dominant and he is devoted, and these are not contradictions, they are the full shape of the thing, and Kalen has always known the full shape. It is, perhaps, enough time to call it what it is. Not tonight. Tonight there is correspondence and a border dispatch and the second watch tea. Tomorrow the Northeastern delegation departs and the trade agreement review continues, and there are 3 holdout ministers being watched and 2 territorial disputes being negotiated and 1 3-year-old with strong opinions about fish governance. Tonight is tonight. Tomorrow is the throne. The work continues. Hope you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.